safeathomedraw.ie or any club member. Your name could be on the winner's ticket. Get your ticket today. The draw takes place the 31st of August. Good luck and thank you for your support.
The Naughty Alarm Clock.
The Naughty Alarm Clock.
Highland Radio.
Gregory, Tashi, a mighty fine 1st of August, Thursday.
Yes, I wonder how many radio presenters around the world have said, maybe you've said it already, can you believe it's the 1st of August already?
No, I said that probably last week. God, it's hard to believe it's going to be August next week.
It's the one thing I try not to fall into.
Well, you said it, so you did.
No, I said that you said it.
No, I didn't, but
Sounded like
I
I
flagged
said
it up last week as August, just in case somebody who didn't know. You know, we talk about the weather. Shannon's having a bad morning out there. Did you hear
No, what happened?
Well, she's doing her very best, kind-hearted,
Oh,
and she
bless.
ordered this birthday banner for her sister
Oh,
to
that's
say
lovely.
happy birthday.
Oh, brilliant.
But it didn't say happy birthday.
What did it say?
Happy retirement.
Oh, no. What age is she?
Don't know, 16 or something, is she?
16, 17,
Younger
18.
18.
12.
Oh,
Right, well, you could
you
say
plucking
happy...
numbers out of the
No,
sky.
I'd go, right, happy retirement, and then underneath it, I'd write from being 11.
Nah,
Yeah, because she's now 12, so happy retirement from being 11.
no. Doesn't work that.
You
Doesn't
know
co-
where she bought it as well. Do they do exchanges?
No, it's not going to happen, is it? Come here, what's the store of the day then?
Nothing, just flying. We're out tomorrow, so...
That's a good day
we're
tomorrow.
we're down in Dunlow tomorrow, so looking
Beautiful,
forward to that.
beautiful.
Yeah, so I won't see you,
No, you've quite
but I'll still be here.
And to tell me, the weather's going to extend now for the month of August.
What do you mean?
Good weather.
No, it's
Mix.
showers and wind and sun.
Look, I'm talking it up all week. Or all day today, 1st of August.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, listen, there's more to life than the weather, Lee.
What helps?
It does help. It does.
In all fairness.
Right, sunshine.
Right, Daddy?
You're the sunshine every morning. No showers with you, all right? We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9.
Right, have fun.
Okay, so you remember what to do with 9? You know what to do. How to put the jingles in and everything for me.
I'll still text you.
And then when I start the program, you've pulled the fader.
See, you have me
You
working
never pull-
hard.
yeah,
when
but you
see,
never pull the
You had the
fader.
whole team just bouncing around you like...
Just pull the fader, Gooch.
All right, I'll pull the fader.
All right, see you in the morning. It is 9 o'clock, time for news update, and it's over to Donald Kavanagh. Good morning. Oops, 1 second. Can I stop this in time? Here we go. Did you just say pull the fader, you bee? You'd lined it up wrong? No, I can't blame you for that. All right, it's 9 o'clock, time for news update, and that's what you get for being a smart arse. It's over to Donald Kavanagh.
Thank you very much indeed, Greg. Good morning. It's been claimed today that 4 years into the defective block crisis, the Department of Housing didn't know what measures had been taken to ensure construction materials in affected counties were fit for use and compliant with EU regulations. It later emerged that Donegal County Council had sent 25 letters to manufacturers on the introduction of the relevant EU regulation 4 years earlier. With more, here's Quisha Connolly.
According to The Ditch, a senior department official wrote to Donegal County Council to ask what work the local authority had conducted. The article says in July 2017, the MICA Action Group met with former Junior Minister Damien English in Donegal County Council's offices and asked him about quality checks on construction materials and also about market surveillance of these products, the issue on which the European Commission has now taken legal action against Ireland for its failures. In August, a senior department advisor wrote to Donegal County Council's Director of Services, Liam Ward, to ask what measures the authority had taken. Mr Ward wrote back in September saying the authority had sent 25 letters in 2013 to manufacturers in the county outlining their obligations, including one which he said spoke for itself. There's a link to the full article on our website, highlandradio.com.
3 men accused of plotting the 9/11 terror attacks have reached a plea deal with US prosecutors in order to avoid the death penalty. They include the alleged mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Nearly 3,000 people were killed when Al-Qaeda terrorists flew commercial airplanes into buildings in the US on September 11th, 2001. Sky's US correspondent James Matthews says the 3 suspects have been in prison at Guantanamo Bay since 2003.
Their cases have been gridlocked in arguments, litigation surrounding their time in CIA prisons and accusations that they were tortured. They have now, we are told, agreed to plead guilty to the charges they face, including murder of those who died on 9/11.
There could be more unrest on the horizon at Aer Lingus. Trade unions representing other staff at the airline are meeting today to discuss the implications of the recent pay hike awarded to pilots. Forsa, Unite, SIPTU and other unions have previously reached wage agreements which allow them to go back to management if another group of workers secures a better deal. It impacts cabin crew, ground staff, caterers and cleaners, among others. Business journalist Joe Lynham says the implications for Aer Lingus could be huge.
They could demand extra pay because the pilots got extra pay, and that could be in breach of a wider agreement that if the pilots get extra pay, it would reopen deals that were done with the previous unions. It could be very messy few weeks for Aer Lingus.
Rather warm and humid today with a mix of clouds, sunny spells and diffuse passing showers. Top temperatures 19 to 22 with mostly moderate south to southwest winds. Tonight dry with clear spells for a time. Patchy rain and drizzle spreading from the west later though. Humid with lowest overnight temperatures 14 to 16. Moderate southerly winds. Tomorrow scattered outbreaks of rain and drizzle early in the morning. Some sunny intervals as well. But a spell of persistent rain will spread from the west through the afternoon. A clearance to sunshine later with some isolated showers. Highest temperatures tomorrow 17 to 22, fresh and gusty southerly winds. And that's Highland Radio News. We're back with news again at 10 o'clock.
And now, it's time for the talk of the Northwest. The 9 to Noon Show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
Hello and a very good morning to you. It's just about to turn 5 minutes past 9 on this Thursday, the 1st of August. How are you all keeping? I hope you're very well indeed. And stick with us for the next 3 hours. We'll keep you informed and entertained. We want you involved, of course, throughout the morning in the conversation. Raise your own topics or comment on what we've lined up for you. 086 60 25,000. That's the WhatsApp and text number, 086 60 25,000. You can send your voice notes to that number as well, of course. If you want to give us a call, it's 07491 25,000, 07491 25,000. Or if you prefer to email, it's comments@highlandradio.com. And don't forget, you can watch the show as well. We are live on YouTube, Highland Radio Ireland. And you can watch us on your smart TV or your Fire Stick, or we're also on Facebook, Highland News and Sport. Or Highland Hub. Yeah, it is Highland Radio News and Sport, isn't it? Anyway, search Highland Radio, it'll pop up, don't you know? Right, on to the newspapers for this Thursday morning. The Tyrconnell Tribune membership rule must apply to all. That's according to the Fine Gael grassroots. Fine Gael in Donegal has confirmed that Monday week is the closing deadline for nominations to contest the general election. The convention is scheduled for the Radisson Blu Hotel, Letterkenny, on August 26th, amid speculation that Simon Harris may preside in an effort to jazz up the party's faithful and to create a new spirit of hope and eternal optimism. In the background, there is a strong traction from long-term grassroots members who want the Fine Gael National Executive to apply the 2-year membership rule to all candidates seeking nominations. They believe their views are not being taken on board by party headquarters. And in the debate about the selection of general election candidates, grassroots members actually claim that the decision on candidate selection is already a done deal. So where's the point in having any membership structure, they say. Behind the scenes, the paper understands the convention is among the most crucial in the country's 43 constituencies, and it's marked in as a must-win for the Taoiseach. This is a tough ask given that at the recent local elections, Fine Gael first preferences fell by 5,200 to a new low of 11%. There you go. It's going to be interesting. That 2-year rule, of course, would exclude a couple of people's names that have been very closely linked with that, and I suppose open the door to others, such as John McNulty, who we had on this show, who said he would be deciding soon whether or not to throw his hat into the ring. The Donegal News this morning, the daughter of a Newtown Cunningham woman who died days after she was told no in-home weekend palliative care was available for her after being discharged from hospital, is calling for change. Having previously beat breast cancer, Bernadette Doran, 74, was given the devastating news in March that her cancer had returned and was aggressively spreading throughout her body. Mrs. Doran spent 1 week in Letterkenny University Hospital prior to her passing, but it was her wish to spend her final days at home. Sadly, she died at home on Sunday, March 24th. Her final visit from the Community Palliative Care Team in Donegal Hospice was 2 days earlier. Speaking to the Donegal News, Mrs. Doran's heartbroken daughter Fiona said despite her family's reservations about her mum's wishes, she said she and her family were reassured by staff at the hospital that in-home palliative care would be available and that her mum would be under the radar of Donegal Hospice. the Derry News this morning. Is Derry a dirty city? It's a question. Is it a dirty city? I don't know. More of you would know Derry City better than I. Is it dirty? Well, that's a question that's answered on page 5 or discussed on page 5. Concerns raised about cleanliness of Derry. I don't mean Derry an awful lot. It's never struck me as dirty, if you know what I mean. You know, sometimes you get an impression as soon as you walk into a place that it feels dirty. Dublin, and I'm sorry to say that to any Dublin listeners, that it kind of feels dirty from the get-go. Never really got that impression with that first impression with Derry. But what do you think? On to the Independent now, and coalition leaders are under pressure to announce the biggest single increase to the weekly pension in October's budget. Cross-party backbench TDs want Public Expenditure Minister Paschal Donohoe to add €20 a week to the payment in a bid to win over older voters before a general election. Last year, the pension was increased by €12. Earlier this year, while Michael McGrath was Finance Minister, he indicated that it would rise by at least the same amount this year again. Jack Chambers was appointed as the new Finance Minister in June. Backbenchers from the two main parties have urged senior figures to treat pensions separately from other welfare payments. They believe it is important to provide older people with further support ahead of the general election. Does anyone disagree with that? I'm not sure many would, or maybe they might. Fianna Fáil TD John McGuinness said he wants to see a €20 weekly increase. They have to acknowledge the cost of living and how people are under pressure, he said. There should be an increase on all social welfare benefits rather than maybe, you know, a universal payment to electricity companies, which effectively is just, why would they drop prices when they know the government's about to give them a load of taxpayers' money? Maybe instead of some of these universal initiatives, would you prefer to see a more targeted approach so that those that genuinely need it receive it? I don't know. What do you think? It's an age-old question. A lot of you would be familiar with the old Dodgy Box TV service. Operators are being cracked down on, it would seem. One, a man convicted of laundering more than €900,000 arising from the operation of an illegal Dodgy Box television streaming subscription service, has been sentenced to 1 year and 4 months in prison. Kieran Donovan of Kildare appeared before Judge Martina Baxter at Naas Criminal Circuit Court yesterday. He previously pleaded guilty to 3 charges of money laundering arising from his selling of subscriptions linked to the King Kong media streaming service between January 2016 and March 2022. So that's 6 years, 900 grand. He was taking in over 100,000 a year with Dodgy Box subscriptions, and he was simply a reseller too. He would buy them, I presume, from King Kong Media and sell the slots then to the public. The judge handed down a sentence of 3 years and 4 months, but suspended the final 2 years. The court previously heard that thousands of users of the streaming service had access to copyrighted Sky Sports, BT Sports and other subscription television services. I understand the ramifications of this man's actions. I understand it's illegal. I understand he deserved to be punished, but I find it hard where to normal people no harm is actually caused as such, and Sky could say it costs jobs and this, that and that, that receive quite stern custodial sentences, and yet fellas, mostly fellas, guilty of the most heinous of crimes, circulating, downloading, forwarding on images, walk away with suspended sentences. As I say, maybe I'm conflating two very different issues there, but the court seemed to be very serious on some things and then lackadaisical on others. There was an interesting survey. It's framed here differently than I would. It's in the Irish Daily Mail. Fears over alarming increase in conspiracy theorists. Now, they're calling anyone who answered a certain way to this survey a conspiracy theorist. I don't. I think people are justified in their cynicism, their skepticism, reserving some judgment until they see how things play out. But anyway, a senior analyst has expressed deep concern at a shocking new poll, as I say, these are the paper's words, that has found 1 in 5 Irish people believe in conspiracy theories. But then again, you see, what this comes down to, and this is why I picked out those 2 words, is what is a conspiracy theory. The survey by election watchdog, the Electoral Commission, revealed a high prevalence of anti-immigration conspiracy theorist views among voters, including that the establishment was replacing Irish people with more obedient immigrants. And one expert has said that there's been an increase in support for conspiratorial views since the pandemic. So let's go to page 4 to see how easy it is to read. I've mixed the pages up, have I? Right, I actually have the graph on my phone. We're going to be talking about that a little later on, but I downloaded the graph and it just is more descriptive than reading through an article, especially when the article is very heavily opinionated in describing certain things as conspiracy theory when many might feel they are not. Let me just see if I can pop it up here. Right, okay, so the question was asked. The government keeps many important secrets from the public. So these are some of the conspiracy theories they're talking of. The government keeps many important secrets from the public. Do you believe that to be the case? Well, 21% of people believe that that's definitely true. 38% believe it's probably true. So the majority of the population, 59%, believe that the government keeps many secrets, many important secrets from the public. There are ongoing efforts to marginalise, control or destroy certain groups of people through the use of political policies. 31% believe yes, 44% believe no. A small secret group of people is responsible for making all major decisions in world politics. So this is the New World Order. It's called different things, okay? So that question was put to a lot of people. 30% of people believe that is possibly or is true. 50% believe not. Groups of scientists manipulate, fabricate or suppress evidence in order to deceive the public. That question was put to, I think it's 3,000 people. 28% believe that to be true. That's almost a third. 51% no. Experiments involving new drugs or technologies are routinely carried out in the public without their knowledge or consent. 22% of people believe that is true. 58% don't. Elected officials want more immigration to bring in obedient voters. 22% yes, 59% no. Viruses and or diseases have been deliberately spread to infect certain populations. So they asked 3,000 people this question. Viruses or diseases have been deliberately spread to infect certain populations. 1 in 5 people believe that to be true, 60% not. So that's just a clear representation of the facts and figures there. The Farmers Journal, the dispute between merchants, co-ops, vets and the Department of Agriculture regarding the sale of veterinary medicines rages on this week. The row centres on who should be allowed to sell and supply vaccines and doses directly to farmers. The decision will have major economic consequences for whoever secures the rights to sell. One of a number of draft documents circulating this week would ban merchants and co-ops from selling vaccines to farmers. The Minister for Agriculture summoned all parties to a crunch meeting at Black Weston on Wednesday evening. Hugh Edwards, he was the face of anything that happened in Britain, anything that sort of ended up on BBC News, he was there. If it was a big story, he was wheeled out. He was the face of that organisation, and it's going to be problematic for future. Not that this is the biggest deal of it, but for future use of archive footage, because he is in pretty much every major news story over the last 40 odd years. But he is potentially facing a prison sentence. His catastrophic fall from grace yesterday was complete as he admitted making indecent images of children. The veteran newsreader was for decades the flawless face of the BBC across the water, who broke news of the British Queen's death and covered Prince Philip's funeral. But the glittering career is now over after the 62-year-old stood in a dock and quietly and calmly replied guilty to 3 charges of having indecent images of children on his phone. And Edwards is staring at a possible jail sentence as he was told the offence had a starting point of 12 months in prison. He could also be put on the sex offenders register. Edwards was arrested on November 8th last year, which leaves the BBC facing questions about why it kept him on, especially as he was suspended over a separate complaint at the time. He was not charged until June 26th. And not only is he the third highest paid presenter during that period in the organisation, he actually received a £40,000 pay rise. And these images, it was another investigation into another paedophile, and they discovered his contact on their phone, I believe. So it was separate to the other stuff that was going on there. Childcare costs could soar by 40% next month, with the providers leaving the scheme that's seen fees frozen for the last 2 years, it's warned. This is the Mirror. However, Children's Minister Roderick O'Gorman refuted the suggestion, saying despite previous threats, the numbers of providers has not fallen dramatically. Under the new core funding model, providers were given direct state funding if they agreed not to increase fees for the first 2 years. That's a complex area. We've discovered it. We've covered it quite a lot on this program, but I find it hard sort of to get, as I say, different childcare providers, the core funding, this, that, and done. So we'll be doing it again, and I'll be strengthening my knowledge in that regard, hopefully through that. The Sun finally, Conor McGregor, he was banned from driving for 2 years yesterday, but the UFC star now faces a €2,000 fine after he was driven away from court without wearing a seatbelt. He just loves controversy, doesn't he? The fighter, who recently starred in Roadhouse, which I only got about halfway through, narrowly avoided being jailed for an appalling series of dangerous driving incidents in Dublin. He jumped a red light, sped in and out of traffic, and almost caused a collision. The MMA star asked, "Are you taking the P?" when a Garda who drove at 160 kilometres per hour to catch him asked him to step out of his Bentley Continental GT convertible on the evening of March 22, 2022. So he walks away. All right, back with more shortly on the 9 till noon show.
Daily newspapers are courtesy of Cosgrove, Centra and Diner, Mountaintop, Letterkenny.
Now we'll leave you with this. She roared at me the other day.
Comedy on the coast. Neil Delamere brings his Neil by Mouth tour to the 4-star Great Northern Hotel Bundoran, Friday, 2nd of August. Tickets from €27, now on sale from hotel reception and Ticketmaster.ie. Presented by Joe Gallagher Entertainments.
Ferguson Fuels Bridgend are currently seeking a full-time permanent HGV driver to join their team in the supply of fuel across the Inishowen area of Donegal, with immediate start. Must have current HGV licence, Cat C, minimum 1 year driving experience preferred, CPC, digital tachograph card, ADR licence are willing to achieve. Email CV to info@fergusonfuels.co.uk or phone 02871 261366.
The Rathmullen Festival gets underway this Friday night with a parade of floats at 8 p.m, followed by Trevor Lowery and the Ryan Turner Band. Saturday there's sports and fun for all ages, and later catch Paul Ward and the Humble Earthworm, a magic show My Generation, and the James Peake Band. The Rathmullen Festival this weekend. This ad is sponsored by Whirrsky Gyrospar, Ice Cream Parlour, Delhi, Off Licence and Home Bakery, Rumelton.
Shekelatha ama Highland Radio. Arna Dortugat ag Airgrid. Uproar agus Forbor an go letrahas na Héireann. Airgrid. Pobal a guachtu, era a guachtu. Teshe.
It is 21 minutes past 9. Terry joins me on the show now. Hi, Terry.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Right, so you have been looking for accommodation recently, and what's been your experience?
Okay. Well, I've managed to find somewhere secure. We'll say secure in inverted commas because you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
But when was it? It was 2 years ago. We had been renting a house during lockdown, and the first house we rented during lockdown was put on the market 2 weeks after we went into the first lockdown. So we had that was difficult. Managed to find somewhere, very expensive. Landlord was not the most stable, I don't think. Anyway, we were pushed out of that place, wasn't given our deposit back, had to take her to court to get the money back, had to find the money to rent somewhere else where there was nowhere, managed to find somewhere temporary for 6 months. Very kind lady, let us stay there. And then I managed to find somewhere that is seemingly long-term and seems to be quite peaceful at the moment. But you just can never relax because you just never know when the person's going to decide that they want to move back into the house or they want to put it on Airbnb.
There's no certainty for you, and I think it's a terrible way to live, especially when you have dependents, Terry.
Yes. And like I'm self-employed as well, and anybody out there who knows what it's like to be self-employed, that is uncertain by its nature. So, I mean, it's very, very stressful, it's very difficult, and it's very expensive. And do you know that actually the biggest thing that people don't understand is that my children look to me for security and stability and guidance, and I'm in charge of leading them through life.
Mm. Yeah, and it's only not only about caring them and raising them and keeping them safe and happy, but also too, we all try, don't we? You sort of think of, is there anything I'll be able to help them with when I move on in their lives? And for many people, that could be a property or whatever. Do you see home ownership in your future? Is that even possible, do you think?
It's something that I am hyper focused on, but it's getting harder and harder. This whole subject is something that I feel very passionately about, and I learn as much as I can, just to give clarity to it. And I've spoken to TDs about this, and they don't know as much as I know, which is crazy. And the council just impotent. 52% of new houses that were put up for sale this year in Ireland were bought by investment companies, not by people. That's 52% of them. So when we see in the news that there are all these new houses being built, they're not really benefiting the people who need them. The supply is overwhelmed by the demand, so that pushes the prices up. So there's a lot of people who would be trying to get on the ladder who can't afford it because there's bidding wars, and they're bidding against like multi-millionaires as well, which is obviously unfair. The derelict property grant, everybody was thrilled about this. It's brilliant. We can all we can buy an old house and do it up, and we can get some help with that. But what's happened is it's pushed the prices up by 30 to 50%. So what was like an old derelict stone cottage that you could have got with a couple of acres of land for 50 grand is now going for 100.
Yeah, the
it's
value.
Just insane.
There's more value in it now, isn't there? Because they are actually development opportunities.
Yeah, but it's cancelled out the grant essentially. The council mortgages right now, Donegal County Council, and I don't care about calling people out because I'm annoyed. They've got the worst reputation for approving mortgage applications. And I've spoken to the Minister for Housing, various TDs on this, and they all don't want to know. They have got the poorest rate for approving. They mess people about. They tell them to spend their savings to clear debt, and then they can't guarantee that there's a mortgage. There's the parameters for successfully getting a council mortgage are so slim, it's near on impossible to get. Like, you almost have to guess the magic number. So I mean, that's no good. Banks, for people like me, being self-employed and the sole provider in my family, like it's insane. Like as self-employed, I have to provide 2 years of bank statements. If I work for somebody else who's self-employed, I only have to provide 3 months, which is insane. Makes no sense. It's illogical. How can another self-employed person offer more security on my income than I can? They can't. It's just stupid. I also think the Airbnb situation, the tax that is charged on Airbnb is 13.5%. Private rental income is between 20 and 40%, depending on the incomes that are already coming into that household. Now, they've just brought out some new incentive. It's not an incentive, it's rubbish. There's like a €3,000 tax break. But just to give you the actual figures on this, what ends up in the person's pocket and why everyone's doing Airbnb and not private. If you have the house I live in, there's an identical one nearby, right? So these are real figures. The Airbnb charges over €1,000 a week, occupied for 6 months a year. That brings in after tax of 13.5%, an income for that person of €22,490 a year. My house, €700 a month. Landlord pays 20 to 40% tax on it. I don't know. 6,720 after tax. I mean, there's no incentive for people to rent to private tenants.
So, but what are you comfortable with us though, trying to not dictate, but tell people or try and encourage people what to do with their own private property though? Like, are you comfortable if we were to go down that route? Because really, the fundamental problem here probably is the government's not building enough houses, the councils aren't building enough houses, and then we turn to, and this is why maybe landlordship has become a dirty word, people won't admit to it anymore, is because people sort of look towards the private rental market rather than saying, well, why aren't we building more, public homes?
Yeah, there should be more public homes, but then, like, say for the likes of me, there were a couple of times where I was forced because I had like 2 weeks to go on a lease. This happened a number of times in the last few years, and I hadn't secured accommodation. I had 2 weeks left and a house full of furniture and 2 children. So I, out of desperation, called the head of housing for Donegal County Council, very nice man, but had no solutions. I asked, with the influx of immigration, were there new resources? You would think there would be, but no. And I was told by Donegal County Council that even if my children and I were sleeping in the back of my car, we would not be considered homeless because I earn too much money. So, I mean, that's terrifying. That's terrifying. Like, if I didn't have children, I would have no problem pitching a tent in the Diamond in Donegal Town
I get you.
and calling the press. I would have no problem. I can't because I have children, and I wouldn't want to embarrass them. But yeah, I mean, it's.
But the only thing is everything.
I wouldn't qualify.
Everything is pointing really, arguably, to things getting worse. Because there's an awful lot of pressure on the rental market for different reasons. People are moving around the place, of course. People are coming of age where they need a property. There's lots of people entering accommodation, the likes of hotels and what have you. They are also competing for houses that are out there. And then also, as you say, people choosing to the short rent option over sort of long-term rents. And some of that is down to landlords feeling that it's too much hassle to be in the rental market. So
no, it comes down to greed. All of this comes down to greed. And I tell you now, the government, where they can't mandate something, where they can't make it law, they incentivize.
But where do you see the greed? Where do you see the greed, Terry? Sorry, just so we're clear.
I mean, listen, I'm not saying that if I owned a couple of properties that I wouldn't do Airbnb. You're always going to get this polarized view depending on your personal situation. So I'm not saying that if I was a wealthy person and owned multiple properties that I wouldn't hedonistically go after the maximum amount of profit. That's business. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But my issue, I think, lies with the government. The way that they've incentivized, or it's smoke and mirrors, it's empty gestures, it's impossible to achieve bursaries and grants, or near on impossible. They've made it so difficult. They need to appear to be helping people, but they're not really. A friend of mine actually has stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he has been in the same situation as me for many years. And the only property he can rent as a single person is damp, dilapidated, things are broken, and periodically he has to move. So somebody, immigrants can move in with a higher rent, and I don't want to be jumping on the race bandwagon.
Well, it's nothing to do with race. I presume it doesn't matter what colour someone is. You're just talking about people coming into Ireland.
No, yeah, and listen, I'm not from here. This place has been my home for 20 years, and I love the life that I can have here with my children. My children are Irish. So it's not about that. Again, it comes down to the government incentivizing landlords financially.
Caller says, just in relation to landlords, the 13.5% is VAT, not tax. The 13.5% VAT is paid before the 20% income tax. Just on those figures.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, but anyway, the majority all still stands. So what do you believe? What would you like to see? I mean, there are those. I think Deputy Thomas Pringle has been amongst them, that they would like to see people incentivised to long-term rentals and taxed heavily for short-time lets. Is that something you would endorse?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not. There's not one fix to this. It would be a holistic approach. I think the banks need to make some changes to their lending criteria. But one of the main things, like I'm on a lot of these sort of pages on Facebook, people trying to get mortgages and things, and across the country, it seems to be that I believe that we should be allowed to use our payment of rent as proof of capacity to repay a mortgage.
100%. No, that's one thing that really should happen. I'd agree 100% with you there. If you're able, and you mentioned, I think your rent at the moment is 7, but there's lots of people paying 12, 13, 1,400 euro, and they can't qualify for a mortgage that would be 8 or 900 euro a month. That is That should definitely be factored into your ability, especially if for people who've done it for 2 or 3 years, consistently showing that they're paying.
20.
Well, yeah, of course, 20. Yeah,
You know,
I know.
It's like I said, it's not there's not one solution to this. There's multiple problems that all need to be addressed. It would be great to see tax scrapped completely on private rent. I mean, they're not making that much. I mean, why not?
Yeah. I wonder actually, might ask people out there who are involved in Airbnb if tax was scrapped on private rentals, even for a period of time, would they be inclined to switch to that market? Terry, I hope you get. I know you're in. I think you might have framed it as semi-secure accommodation at the moment. I hope that turns into something.
Secure for now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, secure for now. I mean, you can never fully relax. I won't be able to relax until I own.
You're at the will of the landlord, if the truth be told, no matter what the situation.
Exactly.
Okay. Terry, thanks very much for that.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Best wishes. No, it's our pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com.
Battle over vaccines and wormer sales. For more in your Irish Farmers Journal, here's Paul Mooney.
We reveal why vets, merchants and co-ops are at loggerheads with the Minister and his department over future sales of vaccines and doses. Details of the new €175 a hectare baling payment. Sheep sales hit by weekend vet shortages. Farmer anger over cereal planning objectors. Tillage farmers to be escorted around electric picnic to harvest crops, plus €7,500 in cash up for grabs.
All inside this week's Irish Farmers Journal.
Kicking off the 55th Clonmany Festival on Sunday 4th of August, it's Robert Mazzell. And later, the Tumbling Paddies. On Monday 5th, it's Cleona Hagan. Don't miss these and many more open-air concerts at this year's Clonmany Festival. Sunday 4th to Sunday 11th of August. For full programme, check out clonmanyfestival.com. This ad is sponsored by Joyce's Centra, Clonmany.
Imagine a wedding venue that can be hired exclusively for you and your guests. Picture stunning views overlooking one of Donegal's most scenic beaches, an authentic country manor as your accommodation, incredible glass-fronted marquee views all day, and a team of experts who want to help you plan every step of the way. Sounds too good to be true? Not at Drumhalla House in Rathmullen. It really has to be seen to be believed. Visit drumhallahouse.ie or check out Drumhalla House on Instagram for more details.
The big summer blowout at CFC Interiors Derry ends this Saturday. Huge reductions across all departments, including sofa beds and furniture. Everything must go, with amazing discounts of up to 70% off. Be quick, ends Saturday, only at CFC Interiors, Campsie, Derry.
All right, you're welcome back to the 9 till noon show. So yesterday we were talking about the elements of the All Ireland Transport Plan. We didn't know all the details. We sort of knew that there might be a wee connection into Letterkenny and what have you. We were also sort of speculating on timelines and what might get what first. Richard Logue is a project manager in transport in London, and he's accepted our invite to come back on today, so we can tease it out a little bit more. Right, Richard, good morning to you once again.
Morning, Greg. Yeah,
thank you so much for your time.
While you were on the air yesterday, the report was actually released. And I mentioned earlier on I wanted to see an implementation plan. And we haven't got a proper implementation plan, but we've got an indicative timeline, which is slightly more vague. But it does give us an idea as to when this is going to happen. So it's confirmation that, yes, Letterkenny will have a railway coming back on these proposals. And bear in mind, these are still proposals. This is not government policy. It still needs to have feasibility studies set up, and it still needs to have formal government buy-in, although we do understand that the Irish government has gone to the European Investment Bank looking for funding to fund their side of the strategic rail review. So that's good news. Now, the not so good news is that clearly to get the rails back to Letterkenny, they're showing an indicative timeline of somewhere between 2040 and 2050. Now, this would be subject to a feasibility study. It would also be subject to a proper and full survey. So what the rail review is saying in the case of getting railway back to Donegal is that they need to, in the next couple of years, identify the actual route so the land can be safeguarded. So we will have a good idea within the next couple of years where that line is going to go. If I were a betting man, I'd say they probably won't have it very far from the proposed dual carriageway into Derry. But in terms of very specifics, like where will the railway enter into the city and into Derry, what bridges will be used, none of us know that answer yet, because that will be subject to a feasibility study.
So we're looking at the Letterkenny juts into in a perfect west to east line, which I'm sure is just for graphical purposes, into another route which sweeps from Derry, Omagh, Dungannon, Portadown. This is pretty much what you were saying to us yesterday, that would be your northwest link to Dublin, effectively.
Correct, and that would be the most viable way of getting a direct train. Now, we can get trains from Derry to Belfast and then change. At the moment, timetable doesn't really work, because as soon as your Derry train arrives into Belfast, the Enterprise is off 5 minutes earlier. So, as a quick win, obviously with the new Grand Central station due to open in the autumn, we'd hope that TransLink would timetable a better connection. It's still not the fastest route. If you're going to be really bold-headed about public transport down to Dublin, then I'm afraid the expressway is still, the only key option, or maybe some of the local other bus services. But even so, getting stuff like that, like getting the timetable tied up together in the short term, will work.
Yeah.
I think what's likely to happen now is we should expect to see an announcement from the Irish government in the coming months about getting European Investment Bank funding for large chunks of this. We also know, because Northern and Western Regional Assembly have been championing getting the railway back to the Northwest, that will make sure that it's hopefully at the top of the agenda. The big missing link, I think, for us, though, is there is still no direct link between, say, Letterkenny and Sligo, which would really start to give you a circular route all over the whole island of Ireland. And also, we know there's a lot of traffic that goes up between the Northwest and down to Galway, for instance.
It's quite interesting too, because as you mentioned, Ireland West, aka NOC, yesterday, they very quickly released a press release stating that they would love to see. Let me see what they actually called for. In response to the publication of the All Ireland Rail Review report, the upgrading of the N17 to motorway status and the restoration of the currently disused Sligo-Galway Railway in order to provide modern and efficient connectivity to the airport is of critical importance. So they were quick off the mark, in fairness to the team down there.
And that's been a big ask of Ireland West Airport, and also of the local politicians up and down the west coast as well. Now, the Rail Review isn't carved in stone. So, as I said earlier, it's not government policy, it's a guideline. But it also has said at the back end of the Rail Review that it's subject to a further update every 10 years. So it may well be that we could yet see a railway line running all the way down from Derry via Letterkenny into Donegal and down into Sligo and Galway. And I think that will happen eventually. I think the movement is there for it. Certainly, Western Track are lobbying very hard for it. Ireland West are lobbying hard for it, and as indeed are the Northern and Western Regional Assembly as well. And I know that Donegal County Council are quite keen on that as well. It's certainly written into the county development plan.
In terms of current plans, road plans, say the A5 or the link from Letterkenny to Strabane, do you think that these plans... Now, I know I've made this point before, and I'm not going to sort of go, bang on that again, but do you think planners will look at the current plans for road development where there might be some overlap or benefit and maybe even refine plans? Or do you think the road infrastructure projects will go ahead and then we'll worry about the rail over the next 15, 20 years?
Well, if they've any sense, they'll do two together. I think we need both. We know that the A5 is long overdue for the Northwest. It's a critical piece of infrastructure for us, linking Donegal down to Dublin. I mean, I don't think I can can't count the number of times I've been stuck behind either a tractor or a Sunday driver between Ballygawley and Omagh. And you think to yourself, well, crikey, you need to have at least a proper dual carriageway at this stage. So I do see the two working together. Certainly the Irish government have made their commitments to paying for their share of the A5. I also think they should be looking to pay a share for the construction costs of the Portadown to Derry line, because ultimately that's where the trains from Donegal will run down to Dublin anyway. So I see that as very much complementary to the A5.
All right, so someone who's worked on an awful lot of projects, and obviously you're sort of across the political scene and all of that, Richard. Just then, in a couple of sentences, how big a step forward in sort of rail connectivity to the northwest and generally improving rail connectivity around the country do you think we are? We've got a document that sort of outlines what we would like. You've talked about we're maybe looking at sort of funding streams. There's rough guidelines in relation to that. How significant do you think this actually is, or is this just another announcement of €15 billion for electricity car chargers that never transpires?
I think it is significant, but in order to make sure it's not shelfware, and God knows how many reports we've had over the years which just end up in shelves, we need to keep the pressure on the politicians to ensure that the funding and a funded implementation plan is in place. Without that, we can't, put it this way, we can't continue as we are. Everyone knows how dreadful the traffic is around Letterkenny, and anything that can be done to alleviate some of that. And that's why we also need to spend the money on roads as well. We just got to keep the pressure on the politicians to make sure this is delivered.
Yep, Dr. Joe Kelly's with us as well. Reading between the lines here, effectively, Joe, you're saying this ain't going to happen.
Look, you have to be realistic. This is a work of fiction as far as I'm concerned, and it's not just my words when I use the word fiction. It's actually in the report itself. If you look at page 48, and it says it all. Please note this is an indicative artistic interpretation of the recommendations presented within the document, and it goes on to say it's conceptual in nature and should not be interpreted as precise. So something that's conceptual is more or less an aspiration in somebody's mind. And if you delve into the actual report, it even hides the fact, for example, that Donegal, now think of this, there's 37 billion, actually the inflation in 2 years on this project, according to this own report, is 5 billion. It goes from 32 billion to 37 billion in 2 years. The report was done in 2021, but if you go down to section D, the last appendix where it's headed, and look at it, you'll see that Donegal is being given 200 to 300 million out of a 37,000 million budget. Put that in context. It's less than 1.23% of the whole rail budget for the nation. Or another way of saying is almost 99% of this 37 billion that they estimated will be cost will be spent outside Donegal.
Joe, inviting you onto this programme at one point was conceptual, yet here you are. It can come to pass.
It can come to pass if the political will is there. But let's be realistic here. If you even go into it, I mean, I think it's even captured in the whole thing again. There's an election coming up, Tatena Ravala. And as far as I'm concerned, this is more of it. We were promised an airport during the elections. There was 3 elections in the 1980s, early 1980s, 80, 81, and we were promised an airport in Letterkenny. Where is it? We were promised gas in 2002. There was an election on the way in 2002. I have a letter that was sent to Mary Hanifin, the minister at the time, not Mary Hanifin, Mary O'Rourke at the time, where Europe actually was given 11 million, 10 or 11 million to Donegal for a gas corridor to come in from Derry to Donegal into Letterkenny. It didn't happen.
I get you, Joe, and I understand that. But any commitment or any promise or any report is never going to be more than 5 years away from an election either, is it? I mean, there comes a point where we have to sort of say, maybe this is the promise that gets delivered.
Well, listen, page 20 of this report. Ultimately be for the Irish government and the Northern Ireland Executive to consider which of the recommendations described in this report should be taken forward for further developments. So I ask you in Highland Radio and your listeners, hands up, who believes Donegal is going to be first in the queue when it comes to that decision? In my area, in Glenty, there was protest last Thursday night, and I know Councillor Michael Collum and the other local councillors here, Councillor McGee and Councillor McClafferty, have been talking about this. There were 6 county council houses built in my electoral area from Glenties right round to Creasla in the last 5 years. And here we're talking about a 37 billion budget when we can't get the bread and butter issues that we need in our county sorted. We can't get our road infrastructure sorted. We can't get our housing sorted. We can't get our hospitals sorted. And we're talking, as far as I'm concerned, a work of fiction. Hey, I'm all for rail and for the infrastructure. Let's do something simple. Put rail from Derry, or a light tram has been reported before, from Derry into Buncrana. And let's start with the small bits and build gradually. But this is ridiculous. And look, to be honest with you, as I said it to you, 37,000 million, and Donegal's getting 200 to 300 million of that. Less, just
All right.
slightly.
Well, listen, I mean,
and the reason why it's only 200 to 300 million is all they're actually proposing is an unelectrified single line track, which is going to be constrained by the amount of trains that can occupy a track at a time. And I share your cynicism, Joe. We've been down this road a lot with reports, and the only way that we can turn these reports into action is for the politicians to stand up and say, yes, we've commissioned this report, and here is now our commitment, and this is our committed budget and our committed implementation plan. And until the politicians say that, I'm 100% with you, Joe, about the cynicism side of it. I think it opens up the debate, and it certainly puts it on the agenda. But this is basically taking you to the sweet shop and say, if you're a very good boy, you might get a Mars bar, but only if you're good.
But there does come a point, like, Joe, I am as cynical as they come. And I get exactly where you're coming from. And I probably would have said this myself if you hadn't said it. But we can't sort of say nothing's ever going to happen because of our because of, not mine, but, frustration with previous promises that weren't delivered. We have to, do we not as a role, do we not as the public have a role to sort of stand up now and say, you've done this. This are the reasons we're going to be elected. Get this done. Get this over the line. We have, I think sometimes we put everything on the politicians. We elect these people. We can de-elect them or deselect them. It's time for us to sort of, and we've seen brilliant groups of people getting together and getting stuff done. I think we need a bit of responsibility ourselves amongst the electorate and say, you've made these commitments and promises, follow through or you're out.
Well, look, and again, I don't want to be political, party-wide, but for the first time ever since the history of the MEPs, the border region has no MEP. So there's no MEP along all the border counties right into Donegal. All the MEPs are further into the Midlands. So, and in one way, Donegal, Cavan, Monaghan have to take some responsibility. We do not have a voice in Europe as we sit, and will not now for 5 more years. Neither do we have a voice in the government. And that's the way it has been since the foundation of the state. And you're 100% correct. We need to take responsibility for that because it was we, the people, that made the decision. And these are the realities we have to deal with. Yeah. And I honestly think that if the government and the policymakers, the officials in our government that run our government, as well as the politicians, could dig a trench from Clones round to Claremorris and have us drift off into the Atlantic, and the further we'd go away, the happier they would be. If you look at the maps, and I've shared them there with your researcher, Caroline, look at the maps, and there's nothing in this budget for the whole area around Donegal, Sligo, Cavan, Monaghan, Roscommon, Leitrim. So there's a whole pocket. And you know something, I think the Donegal County Council, the new county council, should call an emergency meeting number 1, go through this report number 2, and see how much of Donegal has been neglected by. Then all the other border counties and all the counties of the west of Ireland, the 1/3 of the land mass of Ireland, meet and demand that the government give us not crumbs, but the billions that we deserve for gas, for rail, for the other roads, the things that we deserve. And that's nothing's going to happen until such time as 1/3 of the landmass of Ireland, the county councils of the West and Midland regions, stand together and say, enough.
All right, that's the more broader political picture. But Richard, I'm not convinced there's actually a ton of votes in this, to be honest with you, because especially if you look at recent surveys, I think I don't think the public can be swayed by promises, really. I think maybe, cash in the pocket, perhaps.
Well, there's no votes in this as it stands, because until, as I keep saying, there's a firm implementation plan and a firm financial commitment from the government to invest, then this will be aspirational. And I would share Joe's views about about this, because we absolutely need to have meat put on the table and not promises. I think any government that does say we're 100% committed to this, we are absolutely going to deliver this, here's when we're going to deliver it, here's our budget set aside to deliver it, that's when the big boys put their trousers on. And until then, it's great. I welcome it. I think it gets the debate going, but we need to see commitments.
I think we're all in agreement on that, and this is apolitical at the end of the day. And Joe, you quite rightly pulled out some important wiggle room language there. And even yesterday, Richard, we were talking about this when I think you said actually yesterday, when can I expect to get on a train? And that's absent, Joe. And I think in the absence of that, people are going to be potentially rightly cynical.
Well, again, if you look at the report, and the top priority for building this 37 million rail work is emissions. That's the top word, emissions, that they reduce emissions. So our government is more interested in emissions and immigration than in the people of this country, and in particular the people of this county.
Yeah, but if you get the policies right, everyone benefits, Joe.
Here's the policy coming from this report. This review does not recommend constructing new railways through the northwest coastal region, partly because of concern about the impact on the environment, as well as the value for money considerations. So in other words, Donegal and the west of Ireland, you know what? You aren't getting anything, and there it is for you, because it's not
another indication that really we're just going to be the biggest national park in Europe eventually, outside of Dublin. Okay, Joe, listen, thanks for your time as always. It's always a pleasure. I wish we had more. Richard Logue, appreciate it. You'll be getting a co-presenter title if you come back on tomorrow. But thanks.
Caroline knows where to find me, so you never know.
Take care of yourself. Thanks, Richard. You're great as always. I do appreciate it.
An bhfuil tú a dahónaí in anál, an bhfuil tú géirí uasálann se eil gan an bank a bhrisú, tá Big Red Cloud a báirt le KW agus bord ideachais agus áilína win anál ag cur sraid cléir áilína a leor chamad agus péróla sír náisce sé sír náisce ar foiil. Tá ga cursa ar foiil ar líne le schedule fólama sa lupa ag amana a tá fórsna ditse. Cur an Big Red Cloud ar chumas fólamóí ná bhfuil éon álas acu ribh seo uasálann se eil I béróla agus contais. Cláirí inniu ag bigredcloud.com/antasi training. Sír náisce, jefnithe agus janta ar de luas féin. A thuir tugat ag ETV win anál.
Ace Promotions presents the incredible Paul Brady live at the Dunlewy Theatre, Gweedore this Saturday the 3rd of August. Enjoy a night of great music with tickets only $36.50. To book your ticket, go to paulbrady.com. That's Paul Brady this Saturday at Dunlewy Theatre, Gweedore.
Craving Community Centre in Termon have 2 vacancies in their childcare facility. One ECCE room leader, 39 hours per week, must have minimum QQI level 7. One childcare practitioner, 25 to 30 hours per week, must have minimum QQI level 5. For further information, please forward your CV to fiona.mcbride@cravingtermon.ie.
The big August bank holiday sale is on at Cooney's Home Interiors, Letterkenny, with massive reductions across the store, including double egg chair was $599, now only $299. Single egg chair was $399, now only $249. Office desk and chair, now only €199. 20% off all barbecues and accessories, 20% off all outdoor garden furniture, pots, lights and ornaments. Hurry, these prices are only while stocks last.
Sale ends Monday the 5th of August.
Highland Radio weather updates brought to you by McElhinney's. Make your sterling go further with our new cash sales exchange rate at €1.20 for every £1 spent in store. No matter the weather, visit us in Ballybuffet for all your fashion, beauty, gifting and homeware needs this summer.
So rather warm and humid today with a mix of clouds, sunny spells and a few passing showers. Highest temperatures of 19 to 22 degrees with mostly moderate south to southwest winds. So that's how it should prevail for most of the day. Greg, I don't know why anyone's telling me this. Greg, this day, 5 months, is New Year's Day. Please, I'm still hoping for a little bit of summer in August and September. But I suppose we should get the plans in place. It's not long away, is it? Can you make motorists aware that there will be a youth cycling competition on around Burnfoot on Sunday the 4th of August and Calais on the 5th of August? There'll be up to 100 young cyclists from around the country participating. Traffic may be slightly diverted at the Slab Road at the Round Chapel to go down to the roundabout at Bridgend may be asked to stop to let the race through. Motorists are asked to be patient as we try and run a safe event for their children. So just keep an eye on that. You know the area, don't you? That is coming up this weekend. Donegal County Council's development plan is in direct contradiction of what they are doing, and they don't even accept or acknowledge it. I think the council executive and councillors forgot the public can read, says that listener. I'm not quite sure what that's in relation to. I have a suspicion, but we'll come back to that after 10. All right, we do have loads coming up on the show over the next couple of hours. Please stay right where you are. But now we take a brief break for the news and obituary notices.
Summer is sizzling, and so is the Easy Living Furniture Summer Sale, which has just been extended for a limited time only. Don't miss out on the sale of the season at Easy Living Furniture, Crescent Link Retail Park, Derry, or shop online at easylivingfurniture.co.uk.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, Easy Living has it all. Easy Living Furniture, luxury furnishings, affordable luxury.
Are you struggling to secure finance for your small business? Microfinance Ireland can help. We are a government-funded lender supporting both established small businesses and startups. Our business loans are unsecured, with interest rates as low as 6.5%. And we work closely with local enterprise offices. So if you need help and guidance, they are a great place to start. Find out more at microfinanceIreland.ie. Microfinance Ireland, helping small businesses with big ideas.
Crawford Tiles and More, Castlefin. Tiles, bathware and wood flooring. The best quality and value in the Northwest. Fully stocked and ready to go. Fitters and delivery available. 10% off for Mica affected customers. Don't forget their famous 5-day bathroom fit out. Give Crawford's a call and see what they can do for you on 914392.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock. Donald Kavanagh at the news desk. It's been claimed today that 4 years into the defective block crisis, the Department of Housing didn't know what measures had been taken to ensure construction materials in affected counties were fit for use and compliant with EU regulations. It later emerged that Donegal County Council had sent 25 letters to manufacturers on the introduction of the relevant EU regulations 4 years earlier. With more, here's Quisha Connolly.
According to The Ditch, a senior department official wrote to Donegal County Council to ask what work the local authority had conducted. The article says in July 2017, the Mica Action Group met with former Junior Minister Damien English in Donegal County Council's offices and asked him about quality checks on construction materials and also about market surveillance of these products, the issue on which the European Commission has now taken legal action against Ireland for its failures. In August, a senior department advisor wrote to Donegal County Council's Director of Services, Liam Ward, to ask what measures the authority had taken. Mr Ward wrote back in September saying the authority had sent 25 letters in 2013 to manufacturers in the county outlining their obligations, including one which he said spoke for itself. There's a link to the full article on our website, highlandradio.com.
3 men accused of plotting the 9/11 terror attacks have reached a plea deal with US prosecutors in order to avoid the death penalty. They include the alleged mastermind, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Nearly 3,000 people were killed when Al-Qaeda terrorists flew commercial airplanes into buildings in the US on September 11th, 2001. Sky's US correspondent James Matthews says the 3 suspects have been in prison at Guantanamo Bay since 2003.
Their cases have been gridlocked in arguments, litigation surrounding their time in CIA prisons and accusations that they were tortured. They have now, we are told, agreed to plead guilty to the charges they face, including murder of those who died on 9/11.
In the UK, a teenager has been charged with 3 counts of murder and 10 of attempted murder following the Southport stabbings. 3 young girls died at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class on Monday. 5 other children are still critically ill, along with 2 adults. Violence broke out near the town's mosque the following day after false rumours circulated online about the 17-year-old suspect. There could be more industrial unrest on the horizon at Aer Lingus. Trade unions representing other staff at the airline are meeting today to discuss the implications of the recent pay hike awarded to pilots. Forsa, Unite, SIPTU and other unions have previously reached wage agreements which allow them to go back to management if another group of workers secures a better deal. It impacts on cabin crew, ground staff, caterers and cleaners, among others. Business journalist Joe Lynham says the implications for Aer Lingus could be huge.
They could demand extra pay because the pilots got extra pay, and that could be in breach of a wider agreement that if the pilots get extra pay, it would reopen deals that were done with the previous unions. It could be very messy few weeks for Aer Lingus.
A Donegal deputy is calling on the government to explain its decision to increase the cost of fuel today. Deputy Padraig McLaughlin says it's unfair on counties like Donegal, where people depend on their car to get to where they need to go. The price of both petrol and diesel increased by 3 and 4 cents a litre respectively overnight as part of a phased reversal of excise duty reductions. Deputy McLaughlin says those who rely on their cars are effectively being punished.
They're taking a window where the actual costs haven't been as expensive as they were, say, a year ago. They're taking that window to put back in the excise costs. You know, and a big percentage of what the person pays goes to government and taxes. And if you go back, way back now, a number of years, you have a 30% increase in petrol and diesel. And that's a 30% increase in tax revenue. So government are gaining big time from people who have to rely on their cars to get around, and they're punishing those people when they get the chance, and that's what's happening right now.
Looking at the weather forecast, rather warm and humid with a mix of cloud, sunny spells and a few passing showers. Top temperatures today 19 to 22 degrees Celsius. Mostly moderate south to southwest winds. Dry with clear spells for a time tonight. Patchy rain and drizzle will spread gradually from the west later. A humid night with lowest temperatures of 14 to 16 degrees Celsius. Moderate southerly winds. There will be scattered outbreaks of rain and drizzle about early tomorrow morning with some sunny intervals as well. A spell of persistent rain will spread from the west tomorrow afternoon. It'll clear to sunshine and isolated showers by evening. Top temperatures tomorrow 17 to 22. Again, fresh and gusty southerly winds. It'll be warmest the further east you go. And that's Highland Radio News. We're back with news. Headlines again at 11. Check all of today's news on our website, highlandradio.com. But for now, from the news team, good morning. The obituary notices for this Thursday morning, the 1st of August. The death has taken place of Norman McLucas, Cabaret, Quigley's Point. House strictly private, please. Funeral service will take place in Greenbank Presbyterian Church tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, followed by interment in the adjoining burial ground. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu, if wished, to Greenbank Presbyterian Church. The death has taken place of Martin Quinn, Minagori, Buncrana. Martin's remains will repose at his late residence from 12 noon tomorrow. House private, please, from 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. Funeral from there at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, going to St Mary's Church, Cockhill, for 11 o'clock funeral mass with burial in the adjoining cemetery. Martin's funeral mass can be viewed live on churchservices.tv. The death has taken place of Eileen Deary, née Curlin, 78 Donnybrewer Road, Lower Campsie. Funeral from her home this morning at 11:15 for requiem mass at 12 noon in Star of the Sea Church, Fawn Vale. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu if desired to the St Vincent de Paul Society, care of the Parish Office, Brisland Road, Eglinton. And the death has taken place of Daniel Lehan, Letterkenny and Fanet, formerly of London and Kilgarvan, County Kerry. Funeral mass in St Mary's Church, Fanavolti at 11 o'clock this morning, followed by burial in the adjoining cemetery. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu to Letterkenny University Hospital, care of any family member. For family information and more details regarding wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
Is féidir le drogaí áine sa dul a bhaid mar tar bhela éagsúla, ach cuireann siad ar fada isteachart agus tú ag tomaint. Is féidir le roinnt drogaí tú bhfuilliú, rud a ágan bhfuil buailán go nionad tú botún.
Cuireann drogaí eile farragar tí bhír don ruistíortha. Bhín tú ag tomaint ruisciúpaí
Má bhín tú ag tomaint faoi cheannach ar drogaí is féidir leis tusa do chuid passionéirí agus daoine eile ar a móthar a chur a míl. Ná tomaint faoi cheannach ar drogaí go brach, ónúdar as umhaváilteocht ar bmhóide. Tour court at rsa.ie.
Right, so you're welcome back to the programme. Tomorrow morning we are broadcasting live from Dunlow as part of the Mary from Dunlow International Arts Festival. We'll be located from 9 a.m. in SuperValue. So call in and say hello. We'd love to see you there. and that's throughout the day between 9 and 12. Some comments here. Joe is 100% right, Greg. This will not be happening. Best case scenario, we'll have a railway in 26 years. I'm 48 now. I'll be an old man if I make it. If I get a chance to sit in a train in Letterkenny, the country is a joke. Border counties are paying to improve Dublin and its surrounding areas. I don't ever think I'll sit on a train. I'm not going to lie to you, out of Letterkenny. I wish people would pay attention to and think about what Joe Kelly is saying and explaining figures-wise. Percentages-wise, we should all use our vote accordingly. These great so-called plans and projects into the future, they're airy fairy tales to hoodwink the people. A train goes from Dublin to Sligo. If there are buses going into Derry and they're not using it, why would they use a train? The train needs to go from Mallinhead to Sligo to Kerry to Cork. Another, if you want to house, just claim refugee status. Northern Ireland has 3 gold medals. These are 2 different ones. If you want to house, just claim refugee status. And then a second one. Northern Ireland has 3 gold medals. Ireland only has 1 bronze. What are they doing better than us? I don't know. It depends too on which country. It depends too on which... we are an island of Ireland, and it depends too, I suppose, on which country people declare to enter the Olympics under. Nobody wants to admit the truth that so many coming into the country is fueling the housing crisis. It's putting pressure on our housing stock. The only thing... obviously, it's going to exacerbate the situation and increase pressure, but we've had a housing crisis for ages, long before the most recent focus on immigration. The real reason why houses aren't being built is that the government have prioritised data centres over building homes. But the data centres being built by, I presume you're on about sort of electricity and water and what have you, because obviously the data centres are built privately, but maybe you're on about the infrastructure. Airbnb houses are not occupied every week, so that woman's figures are wrong. People don't want to rent privately because of all the horror stories of not being able to get their property back, tenants not paying rent, etc. Another on that issue, the main thing is a landlord fears is a situation occurring whereby a tenant will not vacate a property in the event they stop paying the rent. If the government gave more rights to a landlord in the event of this happening, it would be better. So that's the main reason why people don't want private tenants. And listen, I've spoken to a lot of people, and they're not all rich. You know, there's a lot of people with a second house that aren't necessarily rich. Maybe they inherited it. Maybe they don't trust the pension system, and that's their investment for their children into the future. And this is where I sort of get a little bit cautious about taxing people to determine what they do with their own property, presuming that everyone that has 2 houses, I don't, by the way, but everyone that has 2 houses is rich. But I do also believe that things seem to be stacked against landlords. That's from what landlords say to me, but I'm open to correction and education in relation to that. Another caller says, incentivise people to convert their garages for family or to rent. Treat people the way you like to be treated yourself, and you won't go too far or wrong in life. Look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves. That's 2 separate comments there again. Yeah, I mean, you could argue that maybe the derelict property grant could be extended to outbuilding the garages. There are strict rules in relation to what can be done with them. So maybe that is a plan. The only thing is a lot of garages are close to houses. And not everyone has them either, of course, but a lot of garages are close to houses and maybe wouldn't make suitable accommodation, especially if it wasn't people you know, or even worse, if you did know them. Good morning, Greg. Why do media call theories proven or unproven conspiracy theories and not just theories? Gravity is a theory that's never been proven, believe it or not, and it's not called a conspiracy theory. I don't know. I mean, conspiracy theory nowadays... A conspiracy theorist it's an insult, or it's used as an insult. That's why I was trying to avoid the use of it in the front of that paper. I think if people have concerns and they believe something to be true, well, give people more information, allow them to make up their own minds. Some of them can be a little bit off the wall, but, conspiracy theory has now become a dirty word. There are so many so-called conspiracy theories that some of them have to be correct. And indeed, some of them have been proven to be correct. What was once a conspiracy theory, I think it's not good for the media on certain issues. And certain things are obviously the way they are, right? But I don't think it's ever good that a media outlet, a paper, a radio station, or what have you, their default position is what the government say is completely true. I don't think that's useful. I don't think that's useful for democracy or media. So that article earlier on today presumes that everything that the government says and publishes is true, and that if you believe otherwise or you believe something else, that you're a conspiracy theorist. And I don't think it's good journalism. It's probably not journalism. And I think people should respect everybody's views, certainly within reason.
It's time for Vision Ireland Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Thursday, the 1st of August, Jackpot Day. You're playing for the jackpot prize of €13,200 on the pink sheet. The reference number is S14. It's game number 31. The jackpot number is number 12. This number can come out in any position from the next 10 numbers drawn. And now, here are your daily numbers. 52, 81, 11, 16, 38, 77, 76, 79, 58, and finally 40. Phone your claim to 910-4833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your Vision Ireland Bingo information at highlandradio.com.
With the scenic Lough Ferry, your coastal adventure can be even more exciting. Enjoy breathtaking sights on the Lough Ferry, carrying all categories of vehicles, connecting the Causeway coastal route to the Wild Atlantic Way. Operating daily from 9 a.m. to 8:15 p.m. with up to 40 sailings per day. Book your ticket now on loughfoilferry.com.
New this week in Home Store and More. All Rattan garden furniture sets and all outdoor cushions are all half price. But better hurry, because when all our half-price Rattan garden furniture sets and all our half-price outdoor cushions are gone, they're gone. Also, light up your garden with our extensive range of solar lights. 33% off all solar lights. That's right, 33% off all solar lights. Drop by your local Home Store and More, or visit us online at homestoreandmore.ie. Home Store and More. A happy home.
iMotors are now carrying the largest range of pre-owned cars in the Northwest.
Don't settle for just any car. Choose the one that suits your style and budget.
Visit imotors.ie to explore our extensive range with 20 plus brands to choose from and find your next car today.
Or call into our showroom in Letterkenny or Malin.
iMotors, fearless generation.
Right, so we are heading into the August bank holiday, and traditionally, unfortunately, weekends that have a public holiday, we tend to see more carnage on our roads, be they fatalities or serious injuries. And we do time and time again do a public holiday weekend road safety message in the hope that it lands. And who's to say it doesn't land? I'm sure it does. Some people, it might make a difference, and that's why we do it. With the assistance of Inspector Seamus McMonigal, who's the head of the Garda Traffic Corps in County Donegal. Inspector McMonigal, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you for giving us the opportunity again to highlight the dangers on the road this time of year. And especially, as you say, on a bank holiday weekend, when there's such an increase in the volume of traffic on the road, people are in holiday mode, they're somewhat relaxed a little. And also then the fact that a lot of the time they're driving in roads to be unfamiliar with. So we've been making a particular appeal to people to slow down and be sensible, be responsible on the roads in this coming weekend.
And it's kind of anecdotal, but we get an awful lot in this programme, and the stats seem to back it up in terms of, mobile phone use, distracted driving. 40% of people under 35 will go on TikTok or Instagram whilst driving. A survey of motorists found that 1 in 10 were on their phones. Before that, it was a greater number. And then you have detection, so drink and drug driving, particularly non-wearing of seatbelts. I struggle to wonder how we're going backwards. It's not because of the efforts of the likes of yourself to get the message out there, but you do wonder how we seem to be going backwards with our behaviour on the roads.
Well, one thing you do mention is distraction devices. We always spoke of mobile phones, but it's not just mobile phones. There are many other items in a car nowadays that can distract you. And cars are a lot safer from an engineering perspective nowadays, but at the same time, there are devices that you're scrolling up and down the screen.
14-inch screens.
Yeah, and you're actually looking from side to side. Anything that lets you take your eyes off the road, any distraction that lets you take your eyes off the road, it's a serious danger, a serious impediment to safe driving.
You've visited the scene of many road traffic collisions, many involving young people, people of all generations, multiple occupancy crashes. Because of the time of the day and because it's radio, it's hard to get perhaps the message across as to what that's like in that moment, what people go through in the immediate aftermath of a road traffic collision. But you've seen that firsthand. I'm sure there's part of you would almost want everyone to see what you've seen. In a
To an extent.
Do you get where I'm coming from?
And indeed, unfortunately, I have been at a lot of those fatal accidents or fatal collisions, especially over the last few years. And there's nothing that can stop you in your tracks, like seeing a person or a youngster in particular lying in a bag, literally in a body bag on the side of a road. It's a horrific sight for anyone. I know a lot of people give credit to emergency services who deal with those matters, and rightly so, and we thank people for that. But it's not, what we go through is nothing compared with the friends and families will go through for the rest of their lives, because it's an absolute life sentence. When somebody's killed in one of these collisions, a lot of the time when there's no good reason for it, if the truth be known, and yet that their parents, their siblings, their extended families, friends, neighbours, they all have a life sentence ahead of them because that person is gone and not to come back.
And a lot of it comes down to decisions that we make, and it could be a decision in a moment. The curiosity to check that message, and that in that split second that you reach over to the passenger seat for the car and look back up again, and that car that was, 15 cars in front of you, next thing it's a foot in front of you, or that overtaking maneuver that you said, stuff it, I'll try it, and you're approaching that corner, and next thing this other car comes in your direction, and there's no way of avoiding it.
I haven't got the figures in front of me, but it's by taking your eye off the road for a second, you travel 2 or 3 car lengths, and things can happen. If you take your eyes off the road at all, because for any distraction, you're increasing the danger to yourself and others on the road. So the message we like to get across is don't be distracted. Keep your eyes on the road at all time.
There is an extensive guard operation. Today's actually Amber Thursday, and it leads into the holiday weekend. Talk to us about what you and your colleagues will be up to this weekend.
Well, as ever in bank holiday weekends, there's an increase of visibility, an increase of checkpoints out there. So there will be more guards on the road, performing speed checks, performing mid checkpoints where they can pull you on the side of the road and ask you to provide a specimen of your breath without any other suspicion. So it should be noticeable to the public that there will be more guards out there, and there will be very strict enforcement.
And, statistics will reflect that on Tuesday morning in terms of drink and drug detection, speeding detections and what have you. We just hope that we're not talking about fatalities. Life is so fleeting. It can be so fleeting. You could say to someone, you could arrange, that you've got a family trip on Monday, today, and one wrong decision tomorrow, and instead of that family function, you're actually at a funeral. That's how it, unfortunately, and I've seen it myself, that's how life can change in the blink of an eye. But we can avoid much of it.
It's that stark. And it's all like, there's enforcement, education, engineering are the factors involved in most collisions. But we like to think that education is probably the most important of all. Because, again, thanking you for the opportunity here to speak in Highland this morning, we have to get that message across. We have to educate people. I know it's repetitive, but we want people to slow down, to drive at an appropriate speed, and not to be distracted for whatever reason, be it mobile phones or whatever other devices. And education does work. Because I go back to my times I was going to say, but in 20, 25 years ago as a guard, and really and truly there were so many people out there not wearing seatbelts. And whatever chance you had of a driver wearing a seatbelt, the backseat passengers never had. And I so clearly remember that in those days. But that's changed in fairness now, albeit we still aren't at 100%, but there's 95% plus compliance. And that's purely down to education. It's purely down to getting that message across. And I would also like to think another success in that sense is with drink driving. Yes, the figures are still high and far too high, don't get me wrong at all, but it's less socially acceptable than it was in the past, and that message has got across, and it has saved lives. If you want to, put this down the bottom line, it has saved lives. Wearing seatbelts does save lives.
But what's happened is in terms of the drink driving and seatbelt wearing, listen, that work will never end. What's happened now is the mobile devices have come into the cars. Drugs now are more prevalent, sadly are more prevalent. We've got to the stage now almost where we see more drug detections on a weekend than we see of drink detections, or there's certainly a parity there as well. And the thing, the way we have to do things in this country, and I understand that, if there's a tragic crash this weekend, there's no, we can't determine what caused it. We can't really mention speed because it would be disrespectful. Even if the Gardaí know there was distracted driving involved, we can't talk about that. If the car was overfilled or modified in some way. That's not mentioned because it's not appropriate to do so. So what happens is we talk like this, then an event happens, and there are contributing factors, and we can't talk about it at that time. And then we talk. Do you get where we're coming?
Yeah, it's a sterile conversation to some extent.
It is,
we're
but
having.
I think what I'm trying to do is put our heads into, try and put our heads, the stuff we're talking about now, into the context of a tragedy that we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, exactly. As I say, it's a sterile conversation we're having that we can't get into specifics, but the general points never change. And them being, and again, I repeat them again, is to slow down, to drive at an appropriate speed. And that's for you and myself, Greg, as much as anybody else. We kind of speak, that's for others. We should all slow down. We should, everyone, and always make sure we drive at an appropriate speed. And as mentioned in the distraction device, that's kind of a new thing, really. And that if you go back 10, 15 years ago, there wouldn't have been the same use of mobile phones or other devices. So that's, again, education. We want to get that message across, and we have to do it over and over again. You're right also in terms of drug driving. Again, the legislation's only in, I think, roughly 4 years at this stage. But again, there has been a huge increase in drug driving. There's no question about it. And it is a serious issue out there. And again, it's the enforcement, I can assure you we're there on the enforcement side. But we want education is as important, if not more important, is to get the message across at every opportunity.
Yep. Listen, I'm going to cut some of these conversations and also place them on, some of the social media where younger people are more prevalent than others. Okay, so I'm kind of conscious that we've got a fantastic listenership to Highland Radio. It's probably for the most part over 35. This message is for everybody, but it might not necessarily be heard by the people that we're talking to, those newly licensed, those under the age of 35. So I think there's a role for mums and dads, granny and granddads listening, and there's some quite good ads from the RSA in fairness to them about it, to have the conversation saying, listen, I was listening to Inspector McMonigal there, and just relate some of what we're saying so that it gets to all the ears.
If I could just say in terms of young people in particular, peer pressure is such an important thing. Like at times I see 3, 4 and maybe 5 young people in the car, and you just think, oh no, and they're doing nothing wrong whatsoever, but just it brings back memories, brings back images to me. And if you're one of those people getting in and you're a young person getting into a car with your friends, just make sure that you don't encourage them by your actions or by your inactions. Make sure they're sensible. Everybody's sensible, that everybody gets to where you want to go. And there's nothing to be gained from showing off in a car. Yeah,
and also too, you've gone through your lessons and your tests and all that kind of stuff, and you pass your tests, and that's fine. But you probably could be driving the car for the first time with 4 or 5 people in it, and a car behaves completely differently. Depending on the age of the car as well, and the roads and what have you, and maybe a little bit of extra speed. So, people aren't prepared for how a car might behave with that extra weight in it as well. Again, another good reason to sort of avoid that. But I think you're right too, that sometimes we have to call it out, don't we, that the passenger, the backseat passenger or what have you, and sort of say, look, there's too many in the car, or look, you've had a drink, or look, we'll get a taxi. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. It's especially the case, as for young people, that somebody is brave enough to say, slow down, put your seatbelts on, or wait a minute, there isn't room for 5 people in this car. I'll wait, get a taxi, whatever. But we are dependent on the actual young people themselves to act responsibly. And it's not just the drivers we're speaking about here; it's the entire cohorts of people.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, I kind of say this, but I just want it to land home, and I'm speaking to myself and my family at the same time in this. We have the potential to avoid a fatal collision this weekend whereby a person's life is lost, a family, community devastated, or a serious injury, life-changing injury where someone's life can change in an instant. Sometimes things happen, but there's an awful lot we can do ourselves in terms of listening to you, Inspector, to sort of mitigate against that. And we can never prove how successful or not it has been, but we can just hope that we get through to Tuesday. I'm back in this seat, and it's not with a family absolutely devastated or torn apart off the back of an avoidable tragedy.
That's the very important bottom line in all this, Greg. And just in terms of getting that message across, we reiterate that message again and again for people just to slow down and behave responsibly on the road.
All right, anything finally you want to add, Seamus?
No, it's just again to re-emphasise the fact about distraction advices in young people. The young people in particular, the stats are there to show that a very high proportion of them are using social media when they're actually driving. And that's just a complete and utter no-no. Yeah. I can't think of anything more dangerous than that.
We've all seen the TikToks, we've all seen the Snapchats where the person's actually driving the car on the phone, let alone checking things. So, and I've been driving a long time. you can't take your eyes off the road for a second. You really, really can't. No, absolutely. Okay. Hopefully, Inspector, we get through the weekend with no families and no individuals lost in the first instance or devastated subsequently. We really appreciate you coming in and helping us get that message across.
I would just say in one terms too, we don't use the word accidents anymore because there are very few of these occurrences which are actually accidents. It's down to driver behaviour in so many instances, and we just appeal to everybody, every driver out there, to be sensible and drive appropriately.
Yeah, indeed, and be conscious of cyclists out on the road. There's caravans and there's tractors and there's lots of different traffic on the road as well. And we were talking to a professional driver during the week. Patience, that's another thing. Patience.
It can be in short demand.
It can be in short demand, but just wait till that corner passes or wait till it's not a double white line or whatever it might be. All right, as always, Inspector Seamus McGonigal, Head of Garda Traffic Corps in Donegal, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Greg.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
Do you live in Donegal? Fancy upskilling without breaking the bank? Big Red Cloud, in collaboration with KW and Donegal Education and Training Boards, is offering a series of free, training programs in bookkeeping and payroll. All courses are available online with flexible learning schedules at times that suit you. Big Red Cloud enables learners with no prior knowledge to upskill in payroll and accounts. Sign up today at bigredcloud.com/training. Free, certified and completed at your own pace. Brought to you by Donegal ETB.
Paco Letterkenny's biggest summer sale ever is now on, with up to 70% off all your summer essentials. Don't miss out. Hurry, limited stocks. 70% off discounts in store at Paco Letterkenny.
Arriving at Platform 2, Preserving Wildflowers.
I'm getting this one.
You might see my sister Mary.
Mary Dunn. I know her well. Where are you off to?
I'm getting the lace-making line.
This is me. Enjoy the event.
Give my best to Mary.
Heritage connects us all. Get your ticket to new adventures at heritageweek.ie, August 17th to 25th.
National Heritage Week is a programme of the Heritage Council, supported by the local authorities' heritage teams and the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage.
It's here, it's now, it's Belfast. Come and celebrate our creativity at Ireland's biggest community arts festival, Bela an Phobal. Music will fill the air at Falls Park with an 80s and 90s party on Saturday the 3rd of August. And for country fans, the Whistling Donkeys, Nathan Carter, Rednecks and more will be playing your favourite tunes at Way Out West on August 9th. So come on in and enjoy. Uncover it all at visitbelfast.com.
The summer has arrived at SuperValue, so enjoy great offers like selected barbecue meats, any 3 for €10, and lowest price guaranteed Heineken, Bulmers, Budweiser and Guinness 15 can packs range from $22.39. Plus, save even more with weekly vouchers on the Real Rewards app. Make real savings this summer at SuperValue. Enjoy alcohol responsibly. DRS supplies.
All right, so hopefully this might be relevant to you. From today, parents' leave and parents' benefit will be extended from 7 weeks to 9. The measure was announced as part of Budget 2024 and comes into effect, as I mentioned, today. Right. We are joined on the programme now by Deputy Frank Fine Gael. Good morning to you, Deputy.
Good morning, Greg, and good morning to your listeners.
Right, okay. So break this down for us. What does this mean?
Well, parents' benefits worth €274 a week will increase from 7 weeks to 9 weeks for each parent if they qualify. And parents' benefit effectively is paid while you're on parents' leave from work if you have enough PRSI contributions. And effectively, let's say under these measures, you can now claim 9 weeks parents' leave if your child is under the age of 2 on August the 1st, 2024, or if your adopted child has been placed with you or your family less than 2 years on August the 1st, 2024. Effectively, what it's trying to do, the measures, will, I believe, will have a positive impact on the life for all families, especially those with newborn children. And we know that parents are working hard, and we want to continue to make life easier in these very difficult times.
And this is a payment from the state, isn't it? And presumably is or can be on top of annual leave. So this would be presumably unpaid leave, potentially from your employer, but still an income from the state whilst you spend this time with your family.
Yes, well, as I say, the measures will be available, but this measure will have an impact, a positive impact on life for all families, and hopefully evidence shows that children benefit from being cared for and spending time with their parents when they're very young. We saw during COVID how we all want to get now a life-work balance, and especially fathers and mothers, they want more time with their children and newborn children. It's just a small, I suppose, assistance in helping families cope that little bit better.
So just to be clear, because it's a little bit confusing for me, parental leave is different. That's unpaid leave that you might be entitled to, but this is parents' leave where there is a payment from the state. Am I correct?
Yes, and if you have paid the PRSI, and we all pay, most of the people that are working have enough PRSI contributions, and a lot of times, even myself, I'm a public servant. You wonder what do we get back from the PRSI? Well, this is one thing that's will be coming back if you have paid your PRSI contributions.
Can you break the time up as suits, or does it have to be taken consecutively?
I think it has been taken consecutively. I don't think there could be a situation that you could break it up, but I'd have to check that out that little bit further. But I think that you want to leave it as simple as possible, and I think.
Yep. Okay, we're losing the line there, Deputy. Thanks for outlining that with us, though. I'll let you go. Thank you very much for your time, Deputy Frank Feehan there of Fine Gael. On to some of your comments here now. Morning, Greg. Conor McGregor got a suspended sentence for speeding through Dublin, plus he had 20 previous convictions. What does the guard think of that? Well, I mean, I think you'd probably have to speak to a retired guard. It could be very hard for them to speak about it publicly. There is no doubt, I'm sure, a frustration amongst An Garda Síochána as it relates to maybe the sentencing or what have you. That a lot of work goes into bringing someone before the courts, and for different reasons out of the guard's control. There's certain sentences they might not agree with. It might be thrown out, or it could be got shot of on a technicality. I would imagine that Gardaí, especially those put the work in bringing someone to the courts or getting a case as far as the courts, might be frustrated. It's not an insignificant sentence, a 2-year driving ban. I just feel if I did that in Dublin, I'd be facing 6 months in the clink. I just feel that it feels like it would be the case. I travelled for the last 5 years once a week from Letterkenny to Lahey. I've been stopped by Gardaí twice only, and that was during COVID. Bikers drive very, very, very fast in the gap, and one last week passed all the cars at the lights at McGrory's Brae to get to the top of the traffic lights first. I've seen that firsthand myself. I'm not sure of the legality of this. I do seem to recall we checked in this before, and there's a name for when cyclists and motorbikes move up through traffic that's stopped at lights, and I don't think it's illegal. I really don't think it is illegal. There's an actual name on it. I'll check that out, or maybe one of our listeners listening will be able to help. I've never overtaken a motorbike. That's the only one thing I can say, and this is nothing against motorcyclists. I've never overtaken one, but one's never sat behind me, even when I'm sitting close to the speed limit. Do you get my point? I know someone who had no license, or with no license, is driving with no tax, and so on the car. The Gardaí did take the car off him, but he got the car back. All right, okay. Disappointed for boxer Aoife O'Rourke, her Polish opponent, warned 8 times for consistent holding and pushing. And I think there was a slap in there as well, wasn't there? Only penalised with 1 point deduction in round 1. O'Rourke, clearly the better boxer, when allowed to judges seem to reward aggression. And Wosick's desire to brawl. Whatever about the professional game, amateur boxing is about striking and defence, and if there's consistent holding and certainly slapping, which the Polish opponent was guilty of, I think Aoife's going to feel hard done by there. The one thing about boxing, though, the judging system will always frustrate, or often frustrate. The government plan to reduce speed limits, but that is not what road safety is about. Individuals who speed will speed regardless of speed limit. This is to make more money. Yeah, but there are those of us who drive at a speed on the road because that's the designated speed and we don't want to hold people up. I mean, I can think of 3 or 4 roads that definitely need to be dropped to 80. And I can think of another road that could be increased to 100. So I don't think a review of speed limits is necessarily a bad thing. A caller says, as long as we keep electing the same people from the same parties, we'll have the same outcome. Really, nothing will change. These parties are in power since the formation of the state. It's unbelievable that we've very little investment in the Northwest in the last 100 years. If we keep voting for the same parties, this listener believes nothing will change. Anne is with us, and we're going to talk about dogs on beaches. Hi, Anne.
Good afternoon, or good morning, rather. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Right, what's your experience, Anne?
So my experience was that I was absolutely gutted. I went to Loddon Beach in Buncrana, and I took my son who had travelled from England, and he's on the autistic spectrum, and Theo was very excited about being on the beach. And unfortunately, most of the people didn't have their dogs on any leash. And firstly, I was taking pictures of Theo in the sand, and a dog I heard somebody shouting their dog's name, looked around, and this dog appeared and went to urinate on my handbag, which was on the blanket in the ground. And I heard the owner shout his name repeatedly. The owner just managed to get there in time and basically shoved him aside, and people were giggling, and someone walked past and they casually commented that the dog always does that. So that was a bit of upsetting to begin with. And then secondly, a really big and more powerful dog appeared on the beach about 10 minutes later, and he was completely unrestrainable by his owners. And for about 45 minutes, I watched him. His owners, he was completely off the lead. He wouldn't respond to any attempts to call him, and he was basically eyeballing my son Theo, who is 12. And Theo wanted to walk in the water, and the dog I was quite tense because the dog just did not look relaxed, and the man was trying to call on and basically call his name in vain. And basically the owner chased him around the beach. He had to phone other family members who tried to come and tempt it with dog biscuits, and they never did manage to get that dog in the lead. And to me, it was obvious that if that dog had attacked Theo, there was nothing any of us could have done, because the dog was totally out of control. And my family's from around the Ennishow and an inch area, and basically it would upset me. And basically I'm coming over from England and spending money in the show, and it just felt that it's upsetting that people were taking over the beach. They were able to do this, and some of us weren't able to enjoy ourselves, and all we needed to do was keep it in a leash, really.
Well, that's what they're obliged to do, Anne. This is not you asking for good manners necessarily, and that would be good manners. The law states that they should be on a leash no longer than 2 meters on a blue flag beach. Of the blue flag beaches, they shouldn't be on the beach at all at this time of year.
Well, this is it. I mean, it was Loddon Beach, and I know that there are some rules about Lisfannon Beach. I wasn't sure if they did apply to Loddon Beach, but there was a sign. There were visible signs saying keep your dog under control, and it was clear that those dogs were not under control. And I just feel that when you shouldn't have to expect a dog to urinate on your bag or expect a dog to square up to your child. And my child, obviously, because he's on the autistic spectrum, probably has unusual sort of eye contact as well. And for all I know, I was kind of thinking, is that dog about to go for Theo? Because, to be honest, I couldn't have intervened in any way. I could have tried, but I couldn't have done anything, and his owners clearly couldn't have. And, the relatives appeared with dog biscuits, and even they weren't able to get the dog under control either. So it just felt like maybe the authorities need more teeth or something, or need to kind of monitor the situation, because 98% of the dogs on that beach just weren't in any kind of leash whatsoever. Yeah. And, it was just a very stressful situation, which would put you off. I feel was really excited. Yeah.
Of course, no, this is a brilliant experience for him to get the feel of the sand in his feet and his hands and what have you, but not especially when he's crouched down to be eye to eye with a dog that's not on a leash.
No.
Or even if it were
no,
on a leash.
Absolutely. Exactly, yeah. And I mean, it just felt like, people need to employ a bit more consideration too. I mean, all of us, lots of people have vulnerabilities, and even if you don't, nobody needs a big unrestrained dog basically bounding around the beach for 45 minutes. And yeah, it just really upset me, and I just felt like something could have happened, and it just appeared like nothing, we wouldn't been able to do anything about it at all.
Yeah, and there's some. I mean, listen, most dog owners, I'm going to say this, whether it's true or not, I believe it to be true. Most dog owners are responsible, but I don't know if it's the love or how they view their pet, but some of them don't seem to think that other people don't like their dog, don't like any dogs, and want to just be able to relax in the brief summer that we tend to have on the beach without someone coming up, piddling on their back, licking at them, barking, being out of control. It's not fun. It's your dog, that's fine, but the space is for everybody to enjoy equally.
Absolutely. And I felt in that instance that they were tense as well. They were looking at the dog as if it was going to attack Theo. And basically it was just that dog was the master of the beach. It was in control. None of the rest of us were. But no, you're absolutely right. It's we all need to be able to enjoy it. And I think we want diversity in the society. We want we want things to be inclusive. We want everyone to be able to visit the beach and enjoy it.
Yeah, dogs are not permitted on blue flag beaches. There's 12 of them between the hours of 12 and 7 p.m. at the moment. They are allowed outside of those hours, but must be on a leash. And they're not allowed in any public space, as far as I'm aware, off a leash. Carrickfinn, Culdaff, Downings, Fintra, Dunfanaghy, Marble Hill, Mervyn Iron, Rossnowla, Struve, Port Salon and Bundoran. No dogs allowed on those beaches from 12 to 7 p.m. Until September 15th. And they must be on a leash outside of those hours. And they must be under control at all times anyway, on a leash.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I know it makes a lovely...
Doesn't feel like there's...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was just going to say it doesn't feel that that's enforced.
No, it's
and
not
it doesn't
enforced.
feel that there's anyone to enforce it. So, you know, and I asked people, does the dog need to be in a lead? And they said, I don't know, and shrugged. So, you know, particularly the first one, I'd taken one handbag over with me from England where I was visiting, home, and basically to have a dog sort of like about to urinate in your handbag, it just felt really unpleasant. The whole experience, just London's such a beautiful place, it's such a beautiful resource, and it's very disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, outside of that, I'm not really... I must dig into the laws a little bit about whether they can be off a lead on certain beaches or not. Yours is not a blue flag beach, isn't it? Ludden's not blue flag.
Not that I know of, no.
Okay. I'll double check what the rules are outside of the blue flags. I kind of thought I knew, but I don't want to mislead anyone because it might affect people's enjoyment of the beach one way or other. But just I think a little bit of understanding of others is critical in this, Anne. I really believe, like that.
Yeah,
maybe understand that. Your son travelled from England. He has autism. This was a big deal for him to get down onto the beach, and turned out to be quite a stressful situation. If not for him, certainly for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to be honest, I think he had no idea of the danger that he could have been in.
Yeah,
I saw him looking at the dog, and he wasn't aware. He was very vulnerable.
Yeah, okay, so actually, but the rule is, the dog must be under effectual control on the non-blue flag beaches. And that generally means a leash, but I don't think they're obliged to be on a leash. But chasing around them with doggy biscuits doesn't sound to me like effectual control, regardless of the situation. All right, Anne, listen, I hope it hasn't discouraged you too much, and you can get Theo down to that beach or another beach and enjoy the beautiful coastline. We were talking yesterday, for all of us, and particularly children, how wonderful the sand and the sea is, especially for children with autism. And obviously all children are different, but we want Theo to be able to go down and enjoy those experiences as well without fear.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. And thank you for having me on.
It's our pleasure. Take care of yourself.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you so very much indeed. Get your texts in.
Tuchelt. Bíimid fad á déanamh. Well, ní bhíimid fad. An bhfuil tú I do hí I duchiltóir. Sean snag tusa atá ann mar sin. Agus sulam ris an aine talamh, ní mór dóibh seicáil an bhfuil aon fi blianta gáis ann. Détá curisteach mór a bheith ann mar an dhéantar aimlig, nu rud éigean níos massa a ríis. Tuair cuairt gasnetworks.ie/dig chun seicáil. Teachtarach sa bháilteachta ó Gas Networks Ireland.
Every day's an exciting adventure with the National Trust. Spend summer exploring magnificent mansions, glorious gardens, tree-lined trails and riverside rambles. Hop into the wildlife heptathlon at Mount Stewart or walk the plank by the River Blackwater at the Argery. Pick up pond dipping kits at Florence Court. Take aim at archery at Castle Ward or try lazy lawn games at Roallan Garden. With lots of
"Can we come again?"
on the way home. Search National Trust NI to find out more. National Trust, for everyone, forever.
Summer
is sizzling, and so is the Easy Living Furniture Summer Sale, which has just been extended for a limited time only. Don't miss out on the sale of the season at Easy Living Furniture, Crescent Link Retail Park, Derry, or shop online at easylivingfurniture.co.uk.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, Easy Living has it all. Easy Living Furniture. Luxury furnishings, affordable luxury.
Come along to the Glencolmkill Agricultural Show on Sunday, 4th of August, featuring cattle, sheep, horses, poultry and all marquee classes. A great family day with children's fun and live music. Entries are now open on glencolmkillagriculturalshow.ie or visit their Facebook page.
Highland Radio weather updates with McElhenny's. Support local at McElhenny's. With 53 years experience in fashion, beauty and home, we're here for you. Plus, enjoy M-Card rewards when you shop in-store at McElhenny's Ballybuffet.
Rather warm and humid today with a mix of clouds, sunny spells and a few passing showers. Temperatures 19 to 22 degrees. We have now on the programme with us Owen McNeil, co-founder and editor of The Ditch. Thanks for rejoining us, Owen. I do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Pleasure.
Now, you published more documents. If we don't mind, we'll go back 2 days, if that's okay, whereby it was revealed, or it emerged, that neither Donegal County Council or Cabinet Minister Charlie McConalogue knew who was responsible for defective concrete quarry checks. So what's the background to this? What does the documentation you got your hands on tell us?
This shows it was back in May 2021, so it's right in the middle of the mica crisis, and there were a number of protests in the county about Cassidy's and their continued supply of blocks, even though after the findings against them. And it was in the middle of May. There was this flurry of frantic emails between council officials, between John McLaughlin, who's the chief executive of Donegal County Council, and a number of council engineers. And John McLaughlin kicked this off and said that he'd been speaking to Agriculture Minister Charlie McConalogue, and McConalogue had a meeting with a MICA group, and he wanted to know effectively who was responsible for quality checks.
And I think at that time
materials.
there was at least one big Zoom meeting, I believe, where there was 200 or 300 people in attendance. Is the timing of that coincidental? Was that the scramble for info? I wonder, sort of, in case that question came up during that town hall meeting on Zoom.
Effectively, yeah. I mean, like, we could speculate about that.
Yeah.
It certainly lines up, and it certainly seems as if Charlie McConalogue wanted to have an answer to this question, and as a result of these questions that McConalogue had for John McLaughlin sent an email to a number of council engineers where he effectively asked, what's the story here? What have we done? As far as there's an EU regulation, it's called Regulation 305/2011, which effectively deals with the market surveillance, as the EU calls it, of construction materials. And after John McLaughlin sent this mail to his colleagues, the council engineers took it up. And look, again, there's a certain level of subjectivity here, but it certainly seems that there was the engineers seem to be unsure about the council's responsibility.
But the Department of Housing was quite certain who was responsible.
Yeah, the Department of Housing, that was confirmed in 2022. The Department of Housing had said that local authorities are responsible for the market surveillance as far as this EU regulation goes. But certainly in these mails, in 2021, and to be clear, this is a long way into the MICA crisis. I mean, the MICA Action Group was established in 2014 and had been raising this issue for quite some time. You had mails from council officials. I mean, there was one line where a senior engineer said, "I seem to remember you saying something about the council's responsibilities here." And then as a result of this, his engineering colleague put together a one-pager and a PowerPoint, which was then sent back to John McLaughlin. And, there was one line, where it said, it'll take 5 minutes to go through the PowerPoint, but it's worth your time, and this is, to be clear, this is all happening against the backdrop of the European Commission saying that Ireland has failed to comply with its EU regulation 305/2011 concerning the market surveillance of quarry materials.
And Owen, is it clear if the surveillance was ongoing, but maybe one part, one hand wasn't talking to the other, or was there few letters or inspections actually taking place as per obligations?
Well, this is the thing too, so to kind of work our way backwards here, this is in 2021. To go back to 2017, which is a story that we published yesterday. This is further correspondence between the Department of Housing and Donegal County Council, where Damien English, former junior minister until something happened to him, had met with the MICA Action Group in Donegal County Council offices. And again, this is the MICA Action Group had raised this issue with them, who was responsible for the market surveillance of quarry materials. Now, in this correspondence, the Department of Housing then had to send a letter to Donegal County Council. In this instance, it was the Director of Services, Liam Ward, and the Department of Housing, it was a senior advisor in the department, had to ask Liam Ward, what have you guys done about market surveillance? And you can see, again, to engage in a little bit of speculation, there was some of the language used in this letter, in 2017, where you had this senior advisor in the Department of Housing saying to Donegal County Council, as you are aware, you are responsible for market surveillance. Now, their own minister seemingly wasn't able to answer that question when he met with the MICA Action Group. But so you had the Department of Housing asking Donegal County Council, which is the body responsible for these checks, what have you guys done? And the Director of Services, he writes back and he says, when this EU regulation was introduced back in 2013, Donegal County Council sent 25 letters to concrete and steel manufacturers, and he attached one of these letters and he says this speaks for itself.
And I presume, sorry to cut across, Owen, it's just we're approaching 11 here. So we know now this week, of course, the European Commission has taken legal action against Ireland for its failure to conduct market surveillance on construction materials. I mean, this arguably could be evidence in that inquiry.
I would have thought so. I mean, look, to go back again to around the start of this month when we published the Attorney General's advice to government on the state MICA scheme, a very important thing to remember in all this, and this would chime with the experience of people who have been affected by the crisis. Paul Gallagher he really stressed this point. He said that the state cannot accept liability for this crisis. It cannot use terms like redress. Very important for the state. And again, this is in advice where Paul Gallagher was advising government on how to limit the state's financial exposure. He said very clearly, do not accept liability for this. And then he goes on to say, now, the state could be liable if it was found to have not followed EU regulations. But in his words, I am not aware of any such regulations. Now, you have the European Commission step in this week. And look, the language that the European Commission uses and also the way that these infringement procedures work, according to the European Commission, like the European Commission isn't saying the state allegedly failed to comply with this regulation. The Commission is saying it didn't comply with this regulation. It's on the Irish state now to respond to that. But certainly you have, in this correspondence between the Department of Housing and Donegal County Council, equally the correspondence within Donegal County Council and what the chief executive said about a cabinet minister and Charlie McConnell. And then on top of that, the very legal advice that the state received and built this scheme around, it all points quite clearly to a failure to comply with this regulation that the state is accused of not following.
One last question, and if you can, it might be difficult to detach yourself from sort of being the publisher of this, but as a journalist more generally, given the fact that tens of thousands of people are affected by this, it could be many more we don't know. And given the fact that we have a multi-billion euro scheme in place, and look at the scrutiny, for example, that the cost of the Children's Hospital has gotten, we could be talking many, many times that in this. Are you surprised, other than yourselves, because you are national, international, it's online, the lack of national interest in this story?
I'd like to say that I'm surprised, but to be honest, this is something that myself and my colleagues would talk a good deal about. Personally, I think that anywhere outside of Dublin is woefully underserved by the national media. Oftentimes you'll turn on prime time, or even listening to national broadcast media, and you're kind of going, is this the Dublin Gazette or the Dublin Democrat here? I do think that Dublin-based stories are overrepresented in national media, and certainly, if not for people like yourselves, stories like this wouldn't be getting that coverage. Certainly for our part, not just with this Micah story. It's been 3 years of the ditch, and again, something that myself and my colleagues would talk over.
I think you have to be outside the bubble to see the woods for the trees, and that's why I think the likes of yourselves and local media, local newspapers, because outside of that, the bubble, I don't know what how much a factor that is, but it seems significant. Owen McNeill, thanks as always. Take care of yourself. On the ditch, search that out and you'll find the work from the guys there.
Appearing this Sunday at the 55th Clonmany Festival from 3 p.m, it's Robert Mazzell. On stage from 9, the Tumblin' Paddies. Log on to clonmanyfestival.com for a full programme.
Usually a radio ad is recorded in a studio. I'm phoning this one in on my run. I didn't want to carry my iPhone, so I'm calling from my Apple Watch, because only Vodafone's one number keeps my Apple Watch connected without my iPhone nearby. So I've still got calls, messages, music, and a connection I can always rely on everywhere. Feel that freedom, only with Vodafone One number.
Compatible powered on smartphone and smartwatch required. Eligibility, limitations and terms apply. See vodafone.ie/terms.
Running a business isn't easy, but accessing support should be. The new National Enterprise Hub is the single source for all government support for your business. With over 180 supports in one place, it's easier than ever to find grants, advice, training and more. And don't worry about not knowing what you need. Our helpful team will guide you every step of the way. Visit neh.gov.ie to learn how we can help. The National Enterprise Hub. Support starts here, an initiative of the Government of Ireland.
Do you need a little extra help staying in your home? At Bluebird Care, we offer a wide variety of QMark-approved personalised home care services across Donegal. And our fully trained and committed staff will always meet your care needs with kindness, compassion and dignity. To get your personal home care assessment plan, visit bluebirdcare.ie or call our care team today on 07491 29562 and bring care home.
We love better value at Dunnes Stores, where you can get everything you need for your little ones at our baby event. Keep them fresh and clean with selected Johnson's bedtime and bath products, like baby oil and shampoo, now half price. And mix and match any 3 for €30 on jumbo packs of Pampers, nappies and pants. Plus, you can save at the till with our 10 or 50 grocery vouchers. Dunnes Stores, always better value. Terms and conditions apply. Voucher can be used in next grocery shop of €50 or more.
With all the stories that matter across the Northwest, it's Greg Hughes on the 9 to Noon Show on Highland Radio.
And we're heading into the last hour of the programme. At a minute past 11, though, let's get a news update. And it's good morning once again to Donald Kavanagh.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning. And as you've been hearing on the show, it's been claimed today 4 years into the defective block crisis, the Department of Housing didn't know what measures had been taken to ensure construction materials in affected counties were fit for use and compliant with EU regulations. It later emerged Donegal County Council had sent 25 letters to manufacturers on the introduction of the relevant EU regulation in 2013. A Donegal historian and commentator has described the strategic rail review published this week as a work of fiction. The document proposes the allocation of €37 billion to rail projects between now and 2050, including a line from Derry to Dublin via Omagh and Portadown, into which a spur from Letterkenny would feed. On today's 9 till noon show, transport consultant Richard Logue suggested this should be developed at the same time as the A5 upgrade, with the Irish government also contributing to the cost of the rail line. However, Dr Joe Kelly says the Letterkenny-Derry-Dublin line is aspirational and he doesn't believe it'll be realised. 3 men accused of plotting the 9/11 terror attacks have reached a plea deal with US prosecutors in order to avoid the death penalty. They include the alleged mastermind, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Nearly 3,000 people were killed when Al-Qaeda terrorists flew commercial airplanes into buildings in the US on September 11th, 2001. The British Prime Minister is holding an emergency meeting with police bosses in Downing Street after a second night of rioting stemming from misinformation online about a stabbing suspect. Far-right violence began near the scene of Monday's attack in Southport before spreading to Hartlepool, London and Manchester, as well as a police standoff in Aldershot. There have been over 100 arrests and dozens of officers injured, as well as fires, burning and looting. A Donegal deputy is calling on the government to explain its decision to increase the cost of fuel today. Deputy Padraig McLaughlin says it's unfair on counties like Donegal, where people depend on their car to get to where they need to go. The price of petrol and diesel increased by 3 and 4 cents a litre respectively overnight as part of a phased reversal of excise duty reductions. And Israel's defence forces have confirmed they killed Hamas's military leader Mohammed Deif in an airstrike in Gaza in July. The news comes a day after the militant group's political leader Ismail Haniyeh died in a strike in Tehran. The US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is calling on all parties in the Middle East to avoid further escalation. And we're back with news headlines again at 12 noon.
Cutting through the spin. The 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
What food has an award that nobody wants to win named after it? Can come in pink, black and gold, and even has magical powers according to some legends. The delightful raspberry. And Super Value Signature Tastes Irish raspberries are best tasting right now. Our producers have them picked, packed and placed on our shelves in perfect time. So, make sure to pick some up at your local store as part of our 3 for €10 offer. Make real savings at Super Value.
This is why I love our listeners. One or two of you pointed out that going between the traffic is called filtering, and I just checked it out. It is not actually illegal as long as it is done responsibly. Nairn Beach full of loose dogs. It's ridiculous. Nobody doing anything about it. Another, the backstrand in Falcarra. Dogs are never on leads. And Melinda, and I get Melinda, she's watching on Facebook, and I do appreciate where you're coming from, Melinda. More dog hating. Where do dog owners let dogs run around freely if they can't do so on the beach? Did the dog attack? Was the dog growling? This woman sounds like a drama queen. And as I say, Melinda, I am sympathetic to where you're coming from, and we don't necessarily want Donegal to be a county for no dogs. But also, if you've got a person or a child that is afraid of dogs, and many are, they may come across like a drama queen or king, but it is a genuine fear, and an uncontrolled dog coming in your direction. If you're fearful of them, it's not very, very pleasant. Okay. Brian Cannon, Director of Services, Road and Transportation with Donegal County Council, is with us now. Brian, thanks for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Good morning, Greg. Thank you for having me on.
Good. Now, we are getting into a process now, and I just want to make sure it's clear, because I see some reports where it's maybe not made absolutely clear, or maybe I misunderstand what's going on here. This is not a cross-the-board reduction of speed limits across the county, is it? This is an audit of all of our roads and the current speed limit, and to see if they can be varied within the parameters that's been outlined, if they should or shouldn't be varied. Is that correct? In other words, every 80 doesn't go to 60, every 100 doesn't go to 80. That's not what we're talking about. Can you clear that up for me, just so I'm clear?
Yeah, okay, Greg. The government, or the Oireachtas, passed the Road Traffic Act back in April of 2024, and it set out that it was going to change the default speed limits on many of our roads across the country. So the default speed limit for national secondary roads was going to go from 100 down to 80.
Across the board?
Across the board at present, unless exceptions apply. The default on our local roads will go from 80 down to 60. and then there'll be default changes within our towns and villages, where many of the areas in our towns and villages would go to 30 kilometres per hour. However, these changes are being rolled out on a phased basis. So there's 3 phases. So the first phase, which is the phase that we're launching a public consultation on today, is that local roads will go, the default on local roads will go from 80 down to 60, unless there are circumstances that comply with guidelines that would allow that local road to retain.
Right, so I mean, this is only examples, Brian, and I'm not trying to predetermine the outcome of anything, but many of the roads, for instance, in Inishowen are 80. Some might even want to see some of them go to 100. Is it likely that all of those 80s will become 60s, or is that where it might be proposed that we'll retain the 80 because they're sort of major infrastructural routes and are safe enough to accommodate 80?
Okay, so I suppose, Greg, and that's the purpose of the public consultation is it's this one is concerned with local roads, so local roads going from 80 to 60, and you referred to Inishowen. In Inishowen generally has regional roads.
Okay, I get you. Understood.
The regional roads are the main through routes that you're talking about, and the consultation isn't in reference to those. Those roads would be staying at their existing speed limit at present. It's the local roads, so local primaries, secondaries, tertiaries, and that is what this consultation is about. And when it comes to Donegal as a whole, having looked at the guidelines, there are 4 sections that are proposed to be retained at 80, and that requires a special speed limit. So if we don't do this action, they will, as a default, go to 60. So the 4 sections in the county that are being proposed to be retained at 80 are a section of the Ardra to Ardahi Road down in southwest Donegal, a section of the old Sligo Road from Donegal, the old Sligo to Donegal Road between Lahi and Ballantrae, a section of the Racecourse Road from Muff to the border with Derry, and a section of the Winhill Road. That's the road that goes from Bridge End across to the Burnfoot to Muff Road. All other local roads within the county will default to 60.
Okay. Now, in my efforts to try and make it clearer, in my opening question, I actually made it more complicated. The phase 1, which you've quite rightly pointed out now, Brian, is the reduction in rural local roads. The phase 2, as it relates to urban and national road speed limits, that will follow in 2025. So our focus now is just on, and we've all seen the memes on the internet, haven't we, of you pull off the main road, it's on a back road and there's grass going up the middle of it and there's an 80-kilometre sign here. It's those and the other smaller roads, anything that's not a national road or an urban area is in the mix here.
Yeah, all our local roads, not our regional roads, which are also our arterial routes, in particular in rural areas, but our local roads. And I suppose one of the things I listened with interest to your discussion with Inspector McGonigal earlier. This ties into road safety. And
engineering, this is the engineering side of it, isn't it?
Unfortunately, our numbers are all going the wrong way in the country when it comes to road safety. By doing this default, changing the default and changing this phase will actually increase the amount of signage on our roads advising motorists of the default speed limit. So if you can imagine travelling on the national road or a regional road, when you turn off that road, there will be a sign that later say 60 kilometres an hour as the speed limit, or there'll be the rural speed limit sign, which is the white circle with diagonal black lines, which indicates that you're into the default of 60 kph. But also on the main route that you're travelling on, after you pass one of those junctions, there'll be a repeater sign advising you of what that speed limit is. So this will actually help reinforce the speed limits on the main and arterial routes as well, because you'll have those repeaters. That's for the people coming off the local road. Once they turn on to that more main road, they'll get a reminder as to the speed limit that applies there.
And you know what else will get a reminder? A lot of modern cars have they have cameras that take the they take the speed limit from the signs. And if you pull out of a junction off, you can find yourself where there's no sign and it doesn't know what the speed limit is. That's going to become more relevant as people get more modern cars, because they've speed sign recognition. So how do we determine what is how do we determine what is a local road, a rural road, or a national road as lay people?
Yeah. So as part of the consultation, Greg, there's a number of ways that people can get involved. We've got a consultation portal, an online portal, consult.donegal.ie, and you can go in there and look at all of the documentation in relation to these proposed amendments. And in there's the maps of the roads that are proposed to be retained at 80. There's the text of the speed limits, of the proposed speed limit bylaws, but there's also maps in there that show what are all of the local roads in County Donegal. So people will be able to log in there and see what the local roads are. Another simple way, if you're out on the road and the road signage, you'll see nameplates on different roads. So the road, as you turn off a road, you'll see L. Maybe it could be 4 or 5 digits. That indicates that's a local road. On the regional roads, there'll be an R, so it could be R259 or R252, etc. And then the national roads, another way of, on the national roads, you've got the green signs. So that's the national primary and national secondary. So they have an N on the front of them on the road signage. That's another way.
Okay, so in terms of what we have an input into as part of this consultation, is it whether or not we agree or disagree with the 4 selected routes, or what is the scope of the public consultation?
Yeah, so it's whether or not you agree with those 4 selected routes when it comes to local roads, or whether that the public believes that there should be other roads taken into account. And all of the submissions, both from the public and from our statutory consultees, which includes Garda Síochána, will be consolidated into a report that will be presented to elected members. Now, I'd also, suppose, like to add, Greg, in addition to the local road consultation, there are some other speed limit amendments that are also included as part of this consultation. So there's 3 sections on the national road that we're looking to regularise the speed limit on. So those 3 sections of national road are generally in urban areas. So it's reducing the speed from 80 kilometres per hour to 60 kilometres per hour on the N56 Business Park Road in Letterkenny. So that's from the Knocknamona roundabout down towards where CETA and Zeus are. That's currently at 80, to reduce that down to 60. And also on the 4-lane road from the Polestar to the Dry Arch, to confirm that as a 60 kilometre per hour road. And also on the Castlefin side of Lifford, adjusting the start point for the 60 kilometre an hour speed limit. In addition to that, there are housing estates in 36 towns and villages right across the county that are being proposed as 30 kilometre per hour speed zones. So that's the 3 elements.
Yeah.
Of,
and I mean, we can talk. People can just be cynical. I understand that, and talk about, oh yeah, but what about the enforcement? And people ignore it and what have you. But whether it's instant or over time, even the absence, I think, even in the absence of enforcement, it's inevitably going to change people's driving habits. The speed will drop, whether we like to admit that or not. We're not consistently going to drive at double the speed limit. You know, that sort of way it'll pull it back. You would hope. Okay. And then, of course, we'll talk then about phase 2, which is going to be interesting. Then again, in relation to phase 2, do we know the terms and conditions there? Will that be, again, blanket proposals to release, review 100 to 80, but maybe, Ballabafay to Donegal Town being retained in 100? Is that the same kind of process? And I'm just picking an example there. That's going to be the same sort of process next time round?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about phase 2 just in relation to phase 1 as well. Whilst I said that you can go on the consult.donegal.ie portal, in addition to that, paper copies of all of the documentation will be available in all of our public service centres in Carndonagh, Donegal Town, Letterkenny, Milford and Cloghanlea, as well as in the Base Enterprise Centre in Stranraer and in County House in Lifford. And then people can make a submission following that.
And a couple of callers saying about the cost of replacing traffic signs. Look, at the government believe this is going to be significant in saving people's lives. They are paying for the replacement of these signs. They're funding it, and there's going to be extra signs. So that is just it's going to be a significant spend. Whether the public believe that a waste or not, that's up to each individual.
Yes. Exactly, I would agree, Greg, and I would agree in your comment in relation to the normal. We talk about the new normal post-COVID. There will be a new normal when it comes to speed limits, and then obviously there will be extreme behaviours that lie outside of the normal. Those will become more extreme, or maybe those extremes will be attenuated to a certain extent. When it comes to phase two, Greg, which will be next year, and we'll be again inviting people to submit their comments and give their feedback. That will focus on the National Secondary Road. So that's in Donegal. It's only the N56, the road that runs from Donegal town out towards Killybegs, round to Glenties, Ardra, up through and Cloughanlea, round through Falcara, Friesla, down into. So that's the N56. So that the current default will change based on the legislation sometime next year to 80 kilometres per hour for that, and there will be sections that will be assessed as to whether or not that they should be retained at 100. And then the big part will be the urban, because the urban's cores change into 30 kilometres per hour, and obviously where they start and stop and how arterial routes around towns would also be designated will be important. So that will be next year.
Listen, I've learned a lot today, even in that, and I think there's no point coming on and pretending someone knows everything, because I simply don't. So then the roads, the one example I clumsily gave then, that they're national primary routes, are they, Brian?
That's national primary.
And is there any proposal to look at speed limits on those?
There's no changes as a result of the Road Traffic Act.
Okay, that's interesting.
So
national primary roads are off the table. Phase 2, the urban and the national road speed limits, that's just particularly the NV56 that you talked of. And currently at the moment, get onto the council's website. There's a lot of documentation there. I was having a glance at it whilst listening to Brian intently, of course. This is as it relates to rural local road speed limits. Drop to 60 kilometres per hour unless specified by a 2024 bylaw. There are some proposals there. You can add in your say. It's not just the public that are having their say. The RSA, did you say, on Garda Síochána, and others, other vested interests will formulate what the actual final outcome might be.
Yes, that's it, Greg. Yeah.
All right, Brian, listen, thanks for your patience in helping me learn. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, Brian. And sometimes, if I come at something with my lack of understanding, maybe others are in the same boat, and hopefully we all learned a little bit there. I hope I haven't in any way complicated things further.
Don't miss the 55th Clonmany Festival's open-air concerts. Saturday 10th, it's Kjol, followed by Johnny Brady. And on Sunday 11th, it's the local artist, followed by Michael English. Don't miss these and many more open-air concerts at this year's Clonmany Festival. Sunday 4th to Sunday 11th of August. For full programme, check out clonmanyfestival.com. This ad is sponsored by Joyce's Centra, Clonmany.
Get a great Clarence gift this week from McGee's Chemist in Letterkenny. Buy 2 Clarence skincare products, one to be moisturiser or serum, and you'll get a choice of 3 treat-sized essentials from a selection of 10. Which 3 will you choose? This great Clarence offer is available while stocks last, in-store at McGee's Chemist Letterkenny and online at mcgees.ie, where the best costs less. For any skincare advice, call in and talk to the resident skincare consultants, Mary or Gemma.
Nutrius Weanling Crunch in on promotion at your local Homeland store. Buy 10 bags of Nutrius Weanling Crunch ATP, get 1 free, or get €15 off per tonne in bulk. The Nutrius Beef ATP pack enhances animal performance through maximising rumen efficiency. T's and C's apply. Contact your local Homeland or farm commercial specialist today. Visit nutrius.ie for full product details.
Hi, Paddy here at Shane Conley Cars in Donegal Town. Are you looking to upgrade your car? With Shane Conley Cars, you'll find makes and models for every budget. Great finance options, and we also accept trade-ins. Check out ShaneConleyCars.com or call in to us at Shane Conley Cars from Lonaher Road, Donegal Town.
Highland Radio Time Checks brought to you by EirGrid, the operator and developer of Ireland's electricity grid. EirGrid, powering up communities, powering up Ireland. The time is
21 minutes past 11. Right, you'll remember since work was ongoing in Donegal Town, a lot of money spent in terms of changing the traffic layout, but also in tarting up the diamond to making it more pretty. And as part of that, it was designated by the council as a pedestrian area. And anyone familiar with the diamond, you'll know what it's like. You'll often see motorbikes too parked on the diamond. I never, in all my time my 40 plus years, I just saw it as part of the diamond and never found it an inconvenience or anything. Certainly no suggestion of any trouble, but certainly also no suggestion of people being blocked or anything. I've walked around it with prams and all manner of things, but still it remains a little bit controversial. Brian Cannon is a biker who uses the diamond in Donegal town, and bikers have been meeting with local authority representatives to discuss this. Hi, Brian. Good morning to you.
Hello. A different Brian Cannon to the last Brian Cannon.
That's all right. It's all Brian Cannons today, isn't it? So tell us about the meeting and what came from... what was the mood of the meeting and what kind of views were exchanged?
Well, it came out, I suppose, for starters, the diktat from the council came out to say that they wanted the cooperation of bikers not to use the diamond. That came out basically 2 days before the diamond was opened. So there had been no, if you want cooperation, then you need to have both sides having a discussion. So there's no discussion at all. It just landed on everyone. So that meant that the diamond filled with bikes the next Sunday, because it's basically people standing up for themselves.
But there also was a charity run that weekend as well, wasn't there?
There was a charity run then, came down from Oma. They went into the diamond then too and stopped in. About 40 or 50 bikes stopped in because they heard that, and they weren't going to come to Donegal, but they came that day then because they knew there'd be people about, and even then they bought their coffees and their ice creams and whatever, and on they went. And then a couple of weeks later, then the council then said that there was going to be a traffic warden on, and there were going to be signs in the diamond, and there was it came out from the council that they'd contacted the motorcycle clubs and that they had been talking to them. But I knew rightly there's no club, there's no individual club, there's no individual group, there's no spokesperson. So I offered my service. I sent an email into the council. Says, look, if you want somebody to explain what the crack is on the diamond, I'm willing to tell you, you know. And then apart from that, other people got in contact with councillors. Councillors ended up organising a meeting, and so we went in then last Monday into Donegal town, and there were a couple of executives from the council and the local councillors. And the mood was great. There was no bother at all. We went in informative. Myself, postmistress from Rusnowla, and another fella fish factory worker from Duncanelly.
Mm-hmm.
And we went in and we explained the case. We said, look, we're here as representative. Well, I was there as a representative of the people of Donegal, the businesses Donegal, and as a person that goes into the diamond on the bike. I wasn't a representative of any group or anything, and the other two were the same. So that was where we went into.
Go ahead. Keep going, Brian.
And the council offered the car park at the back of the Bank of Ireland. Said, look, if you want to park there and walk into the diamond. And there was no... We couldn't agree to anything. So we left the meeting fairly good. And, said, look, that's where we stand, that's where you stand, that's fair enough. Then yesterday morning, then the council put out... They said that there had been a compromise reached.
Mm-hmm.
The compromise that they published was no compromise at all. It was what they had done a presentation of what they wanted the diamond to be and what they expected of it, and then so that was basically all that came out as their compromise was their presentation and saying that we had agreed to it. So we weren't very happy about it.
So, as it stands then, things are the same. Bikers aren't allowed to park on the diamond any longer, and they've been offered the car park at the back of the Bank of Ireland. That it is closed. There's quite quick access to the diamond from it, but that doesn't really sort of fit into the, I don't know if culture is the right word, but the whole reason
the whole reason that the diamond works and the diamond fills with bikes is because there's a centre of three roads. It's where, somebody come from Letterkenny to Killybegs will come through the town, see is there anybody about, stop for a chat, maybe organise a run away somewhere. And the same people come from Sligo. People come from Belfast. There were a good few people from Belfast there last weekend. And they made it the destination. They came down, they had their lunch in Donegal and toured about the rest of the country on their way home again. So it's not that you could just... If all the bikes were in the car park out the back, people wouldn't see anybody about, and you just drive through. Whenever the diamond was closed, there was no bikes in the town. People just didn't meet up. There was no it's a social event. It's kind of, you just don't know who's going to be there. Call in, see who's about, and that's kind of the way it is, you know.
So
that's why it works. I've been in about the diamond. I've socialised about the diamond my whole life when I was a young fellow on bicycles, and and that was kind of so. There's no. I don't know. Apparently, the roads engineer was getting people complaining to him about the bikes. Now, there's very, very few. There's two separate online petitions. One has 500, or one had this nearly 2 weeks, which is 572 signatures on it, and the other had 344 in favour of the bikes in the diamond. That was one was set up by a business in the town, and so it's just kind of come out of the blue, and then to be told that you're not allowed without any contact at all. Nobody came down and walked around and asked people. There's been no survey on who's on the diamond, who uses it, and it's very, very much just a diktat. There you go, you're finished, and listen to a few people that will complain, but won't listen to people that are in favour of it. It's public. My interest in it was from day one when the diamond started. There was talk about there's money given to upgrade the diamond. I got involved in the public consultation. There was a table on the diamond, put my views across. Then the planning came out then in July 22, and there was public consultation on that. I put in a submission to that, told other people about it. They put in their submissions. Then that disappeared. There's no mention of it at all. Even when the diamonds were being worked at, I went out to the council offices to see what the plans were, the revised plans, and there wasn't even a copy of the revised plans in the council offices.
Yeah.
So nobody knew exactly what was going to happen to it,
I just see this space, and as I say, I just see this space as a public space. Now, if there was aggro or spinning wheels or things like that there, I could get where you're coming from. But as I say, I've spent many a summer in Donegal town. It just, to me, it added to the sort of buzz and vibrancy of it. It's a space for everybody.
Of course.
Kids love bikes. They're up on the bikes getting the pictures taken. Older people love them. They can be nostalgic about the first bike they had. Is there a friendly enough old bunch, Brian? I mean, you should look wearing silly, parking your bikes behind the bank and sitting around the diamond in your leathers, hanging around your waist.
Well, one of the problems that they think there is, one that they listed out in there, is that kids could maybe burn themselves on the exhaust and maybe toss a bike on top of themselves. But that's more likely to happen. It's more likely to happen at the back car park where there's nobody watching the bikes.
I know, but
it's more likely.
Like, I don't want to sound like an old man, but listen, we can't be afraid of everything. I mean, we have We have to be able to. I get the children out, let them engage with the bike, and we as parents will say, and don't go near the back of the bike, the exhaust might be out. You know what I mean? Like, this is... We're getting so sterile here.
At the end of the day, it's a roundabout. It's the middle of a roundabout. There's 2 lanes of traffic travelling around the whole lot. There shouldn't be kids running wild around it. It's less dangerous if there's a bit of a blockage to stop. And there's no problem. Kids get up, get their photograph taken. There's a whole heap of people that socialise that don't have bikes. They come in every Sunday, sit in for the chat, and just meet up and it's kind of like a pub back in the 1980s. You don't know who's going to be in there. You just go in the door and you don't know who's and where you'll end up. You could chat to somebody, they say they've never been up around the Blue Stack Drive. Well, sure, come on, we'll go up a nice wee loop outside Donegal there. We'll go up there now and show the area. Maybe we'll run down to Slieve League or something like that. It's just not... But as far as parking is concerned, people say, well, why didn't you just park in the car park? There's actually the only laws about motorbike parking are... there's the bylaws, the national statutory instrument. Motorcycles and pedal cycles are prohibited from parking in disc parking places. And then section 28, a motorcycle or pedal cycle shall not be parked during business hours in a disc parking place. And then Donegal bylaws then 2004, a person shall not park or cause to be parked a motorcycle other than in the parking bay indicated for that purpose by surface or other signs or markings. So basically it means that you're not, unless you're parked in a motorcycle designated area, you're parking illegally. And there's 6 motorcycle parking spaces.
I get you, I know that, and it's crazy. Brian, I just wonder what we want this county to be in the future. We're chasing bikers away. Dog owners are starting to not feel welcome. camper vans are chased wherever they go. Now, I get this irresponsible parking and all that. Don't get me wrong, but what are we leaving?
Of course.
What are we leaving behind? What is it so that we all can walk around wrapped in cotton wood and bubble wrap, making sure nothing happens to us?
Well, the council, what they want events to happen in the tent on the Diamond, and that's great. But there's never been an event in the Diamond that was cancelled because the bikes were there. If bikes come in, there's an event on, they won't go in. Even there's an example now through Killybegs there last week, and the Seafood Shack's gone now. It's up the town, and you kind of drive in, and it added so much to the town. You got the smell of cooking
fish.
Who do you think moved that? There was 20 or 30 people. Well, there you go. That's the. And as far as the public consultation ends of it, that was where I was. I wanted to get engaged in the whole process. There was so little information about what was happening on the Diamond. Apparently, it was from day one they were going to ban the bikers, but they never mentioned it until the day it opened, basically.
All right, okay. Brian, I have to go. So but, I know there's also a concern about oil from vehicles and all that kind of stuff, but I guarantee you, there's many. Yeah, but I guarantee you there's going to be more chewing gum and fag butts on that Diamond.
It's actually, if you go in underneath the tent, it needs to be washed already because the rain isn't even washing away coffee stains and all that. They've put substandard stone in it. They put less quality stone than they had before, and now they want to keep it. And actually, the only one thing that was left out of the thing that the council said was the compromise. It was word for word everything that was their thing. The only thing was left out of it was the cost of it, because I think they're embarrassed about the cost of it. They got 250,000 of a grant, and they ended up having to spend another 600,000 of council money on it.
Well, it does look lovely, but I mean, at the end of the day, it should be.
It looks lovely, but it doesn't look 850,000 more than it did before it started, and there's going to be more maintenance in it now.
All right, Brian. Yep, I get you.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian. Brian Cannon there. He's a biker. Now, that's. This is not a news bulletin, okay? So I can sort of say what I feel as well. I could be wrong, though. I never saw any bother in it. I like the vibrancy. I don't think we should be afraid of everything. The notion that bikes shouldn't be there because someone could touch an exhaust when there's cars parked all over the place and bikes parked all over the place and cars passing left, right and centre, and there's crossings that are like, are they pedestrian crossings? No, they're not. Who is right away? All that kind of stuff. So, listen, are we going to get to the point where we live in just this blank, sterile environment that no one does anything for the fear of something? I don't know. But anyway, as I say, I'm always open to have my views changed, and I'd really appreciate people who perhaps can articulate as to why it's the right decision to come on the show. And of course, I'll be open to have my mind changed and be very respectful.
Battle over vaccines and wormer sales. For more in your Irish Farmers Journal, here's Paul Mooney.
We reveal why vets, merchants and co-ops are at loggerheads with the Minister and his department over future sales of vaccines and doses. Details of the new €175 a hectare baling payment. Sheep sales hit by weekend vet shortages. Farmer anger over cereal planning objectors. Tillage farmers to be escorted around electric picnic to harvest crops. Plus €7,500 in cash up for grabs.
All inside this week's Irish Farmers Journal.
Ferguson Fuels Bridgend are currently seeking a full-time permanent HGV driver to join their team in the supply of fuel across the Inishowen area of Donegal, with immediate start. Must have current HGV licence, Cat C, minimum 1 year driving experience preferred, CPC, digital tachograph card, ADR licence are willing to achieve. Email CV to info@fergusonfuels.co.uk or phone 02871 261366.
Evolve Clothing, biggest summer sale now on. Evolve Clothing, biggest summer sale now on. Evolve Clothing, biggest summer sale now on at Letterkenny Retail Park or evolveclothing.com.
Go all Aldi with summer barbecue sizzlers now only $2.99 each, including specially selected Black Angus Ultimate 6-ounce beef burgers, Butcher Selection quick cooked chicken fillets and Butcher Selection pork belly strips, now only $2.99 each. And there's even more in store. All Board Bia quality assured. Go all Aldi while stocks last.
Are you planning a night out or an overdue catch-up with friends? Visit Sister Sarah's in Letterkenny for a top-class gastropub experience. Enjoy Grill Night Thursdays, Sarah's all-you-can-eat barbecue on Fridays, live sport, weekend music and private function rooms for your special occasions. Sister Sarah's Letterkenny, serving food you'll love from Wednesday through to Sunday.
Right, okay, we're joined in studio now by two guests. Amy McCrory, Youth and Community Engagement Worker with Jigsaw Donegal. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Greg.
Thank you so much for joining us. And Tara Toy, Youth Advocate with Jigsaw as well.
Hello,
Jigsaw
how's it
Donegal.
going?
Hey, Tara, thanks so much for calling into us. Right, the Rural Reality looks into the survey findings of what young people in Donegal said the barriers are to help or seeking help or accessing services for young people. I suppose I'll start with you, Amy. What are really what's coming through in this survey?
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, I want to say a massive thanks to you, Greg, for having us come on today. I was talking to Tara about when we first started this project. We couldn't have imagined getting this platform to come on and speak. So thank you for your continued support. Listening to the voice of young people, it matters so much to us. So it's a great opportunity, and we're delighted to be here. So this report actually was spearheaded by young people for young people. We conducted a survey with Donegal Youth Council. It was around 89 young people aged 12 to 18. And we asked them, in their thoughts and their opinions, what were the barriers, if any, to help seeking or accessing services in Donegal, but specifically for young people from rural communities or those that were living in rural communities. So that's what we did, and we got such rich data that then our wonderful youth advocates then analysed and then created this report. So
Tara, what do you see as the I think 4 main themes really have been identified here?
Yeah, so from the report itself, we came across then the 4 main themes. So it was stigma around like accessing different services about your mental health, and even bringing up the topic at all about mental health is sort of stigmatized. And then the fear as well about going on and trying to like maybe get some help or seeking these services. And then
I think those 2, before you go on to the 4, I think those 2 can also be part of a problem. In that, you know, if you're suffering from anxiety or depression or whatever it might be, you can sort of you will use things to sort of maybe defer facing up to it or seeking help, and the fear of doing so is one, but also the stigma, really, because it is a perception. Because I don't believe there is a stigma about seeking help for your mental health anymore. I don't know what you think, Tara.
Yeah, I suppose it has come a long way in the past while, and a lot of that has been to Jigsaw as well as being out in the community, being out in the schools, trying like just making it a topic of conversation and not having people sort of shy away from the conversation, as like we've seen before. Like even maybe when I started secondary school, like it wouldn't really be talked about, but then when I left secondary school, you know, it was more talked about. There was more like workshops coming in, people from the outside coming in to sort of talk about it, and that's really good. Like we are starting to break down the stigma, but I do see it still there, you know. It is still present, and like, you know, some people do just see it as something that can't be talked about and something that can't be.
I don't disagree with you at all, but I just think there are nice individuals and then there are unpleasant ones, and they might pick on you because of your race or your gender or your mental health as well, and we need to sort of get those people on board. Awareness of services and accessibility is almost different, because that catches everybody, particularly the ones that have overcome the stigma and the fear. We need to make sure the services are there for them, Amy.
Yeah, absolutely, because again, I mean, when we look at the survey, 89% of young people said that stigma was sometimes a barrier or a major barrier to help seeking, which is a large percentage, but then also 52% said that a lack of awareness of services. So, you know, young people are saying, yes, we understand it's okay to talk and it's okay to seek help, but then there was an element of confusion or not knowing where to go. So that was something that actually we were really curious about, and really it was useful for us to know actually then in our commitments, what do we need to do better? More promotion of our online services, more visibility.
I think if you Google something, there's a lot comes up. If you're new to it, you know, we take note of things that are relevant to us. So if you've come of age or you've had an experience that has triggered mental health issues, that might be the first time you come across Jigsaw in the searches or something. It's like, well, is this for me? And you can see where we all have a job in getting the message out there and making sure people know precisely what services are available.
Absolutely. And that's, I mean, when you think about information, young people now have information exactly go on their phone, and they can get so much information, which can be a really useful tool. Like you can Google Jigsaw Donegal and get straight onto our page. You can refer yourself into the service. You get all of the information, but also that can be very overwhelming as well if you don't know how to navigate it. So absolutely. So it's, I suppose.
And tell your young people, please don't take mental health advice from TikTok and other platforms, because it's actually designed to not to help you in many cases. Accessibility, Tara, what does that look like?
Yeah, I suppose all the youth advocates, we kind of come from rural backgrounds ourselves, and we're all sort of in the middle of nowhere and we're scattered around Donegal. And so we all kind of realise that accessibility to the services is a huge issue. Like, public transport in Donegal is little to none. And so we
in other words, if you try and access services in Letterkenny, you've got one experience. If you're in Carndonagh, you've got potentially another.
Exactly. I suppose the system we have is kind of catered towards people that are like in the towns, and people that are more rural can't really be accessing these services. And online is great, but online can really only go so far.
Yeah.
So it's better to be like in the place. So from the report as well, we've seen that accessibility was a huge issue, and that did come up a lot through different respondents. So that's sort of another topic that we focused on, and then we're like in our demands as well. We set out that we would like the public transport systems to be looked at and see if they can be improved and can be more present, because the systems that we have, they're good, but they're not really reliable and they're not really enough. And so we're kind of calling for better, more reliable services.
And awareness of those services as well,
Yes.
too. I know when we talk of the lack of awareness of services, we're talking about the mental health services, but even the transport services as well. I think there's this notion that there is quite an infrastructure there, but it's for older people as well, too, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
so actions, what can we do, Amy?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think when we look at these 4 themes, for us, we were looking at them as like a direction of travel for us. So they're informing. In Jigsaw, we've set some things that we want to do, like increased visibility campaigns, so that young people, when they look at the service, can see themselves represented. But also promotion of our online services. We have Jigsaw live chat, so for maybe those young people that maybe the journey is far for them to come into the hub, that is available for them.
It opens a line of communication, which
Absolutely.
in and of itself might not be the end of the journey, but it's
definitely
that's important. They know that there's a listening voice. It might not be exactly what we want right now.
Yeah.
But it starts something, hopefully.
Yeah. And then just with regards to the stigma, I think it's a real collective responsibility. It's about actually having conversations, in your GAA clubs and at the kitchen table, in your gyms, in Jigsaw session rooms. Like, Greg, you having us on today, like giving us a platform, this is all helping reduce the stigma, encouraging all young people that they can come, and not even to Jigsaw, if they help seek talking to a one good adult in their life, if they have a football coach that they trust, a youth worker that they trust, just actually being able to say, I can talk to someone about my mental health, and I'm important, and it's important to me, and I should be valued in that.
Fantastic stuff. Tara, where can people see it's been laid out really easy actually in terms of accessibility, but where can people have a look at it? And I always think it's good for us maybe with influence on young people's lives that we know what this is about too, because we can be the signposts.
Exactly, yeah. It's across all of our social medias. It's up online. You can find it on our website. It's really easy to find. It's well structured and laid out, so it's easy to read as well. I would recommend everyone have a look at it, just so you sort of familiarise yourself with the issues that are, and so you can see as well the work that we've done and kind of help us as well reduce the stigma and work with us and promote our online services.
And young fellas too might be more reluctant to seek help.
Yeah, but I think to end, if we were going to end on, there's definitely an element of progress and hope amongst all this. Like, I was actually looking at our referral rates, and in 2023 we had the highest number of referrals come to Jigsaw. And yes, there is a disparity in the gender, but it is getting better. So if we look at 2022, 2023 in Jigsaw Donegal, you were looking maybe at around, let me just double check, 16 males per month accessing services, whereas now we're up to, in 2024, 19 males a month.
And that's a double-edged sword. It might point to an increase in people needing assistance, but also it also means the awareness message and the stigma and fear barriers are being overcome.
Yeah.
And we'll keep doing it. Keep plugging away. Well done, Tara. Thank you very much indeed. You are a very good youth advocate. That's clear. And also Amy McCrory, Youth and Community Engagement Worker with Jigsaw Donegal. And if anyone, Jigsaw, how do you access the services?
Absolutely. So for those out there, Jigsaw is the National Centre for Youth Mental Health. So we are a charity, and we are for a free and confidential mental health support service for young people aged 12 to 25 in Donegal. We provide one-to-one therapeutic support that can be face-to-face in our hub on Pierce Road in Letterkenny, but also over Zoom, online. And if you want to refer, you can now refer on Jigsaw's website. So you can go to jigsaw.ie and look up Jigsaw Donegal and refer yourself directly, or you can just give us a call or give us an email. And would really encourage anyone out there that needs support. We are here for you.
And also, too, I'd love it down the line a conversation where we speak to mums and dads and caregivers and outline to them that there is no stigma in them realizing that maybe a young person in their life might need to have a little chat, because I do wonder if they go, well, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Greg, and actually that's a really good point you've made, because we actually see not only are more young people coming into our Jigsaw service, but we have more curious, engaged parents coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
Parents and guardians coming into the session.
Because a lot of parents and guardians might not want to face that, and it could be a barrier to their young person getting an early intervention, which can have really dramatic positive results.
Absolutely.
Okay, Amy McCrory, Tara Toy, both of you, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
The big August bank holiday sale is on at Cooney's Home Interiors, Letterkenny, with massive reductions across the store, including double egg chair was $599, now only $299. Single egg chair was $399, now only $249. Office desk and chair, now only €199. 20% off all barbecues and accessories, 20% off all outdoor garden furniture, pots, lights and ornaments. Hurry, these prices are only while stocks last.
Sale ends Monday, the 5th of August.
Irwin Expert Electrical, your trusted destination for all things home appliances, electrical and entertainment in the Northwest. With over 50 years of leading the way, we pride ourselves on offering a diverse range of products under one roof. From top brands like LG, Samsung, Cooker, Bosch, Apple and more, take advantage of our free layaway service where you can store your new items until you're ready for them. Perfect for renovations and new build projects. Visit Irwin Expert Electrical today in Letterkenny or Buncrana.
Go full Lidl this bank holiday with Lidl Plus. Try our Board B approved Irish barbecue meats, any three for €9, like chicken thighs and deluxe Angus burgers. And you'll save 10% when you spend €50 or more for big bank holiday savings. Scan the Lidl Plus app and go full Lidl this summer. T's and C's apply, alcohol excluded.
Welcome to Cherrymore Kitchens and Bedrooms in Donegal Town. Discover affordable luxury with our bespoke fitted furniture solutions. With almost 30 years of serving Ireland and the Northwest, we're your trusted experts. Visit us Monday to Thursday 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. with late night openings Fridays until 7. Book your free consultation today on 074 9725 822 or visit cherrymore.ie. Cherrymore Kitchens and Bedrooms, where affordability and luxury combine.
Highland Radio weather updates brought to you by McElhenney's. Support a local Donegal business with McElhenney's. From fashion to home essentials, find everything you need for any occasion.
Okay.
Shop McElhenney's Ballybuffet for quality you can trust.
Make sure you do. Rather warm and humid today with a mix of clouds, sunny spells and a few passing showers. Temperatures 19 to 22 degrees. Now, Kieran O'Connor is a senior analyst at Institute for Strategic Dialogue. He joins me on the programme now. Kieran, thanks for your time.
Morning, Greg. How are you?
I am doing good. Right. So, there's a survey been conducted, of course, by the election watchdog, the Electoral Commission. It revealed a high percentage of anti-immigration conspiracy theorist views amongst voters, including the establishment was replacing Irish people with more obedient immigrants. And it was done quite well in that it sort of got people's answers at various degrees and then sort of had an overview of whether it was a yes or a no, really. What do you see as the key findings, Kieran?
Well, I suppose as the findings are laid out in the newspapers there today, the most, I suppose, headline grabbing one perhaps is that a fifth of respondents believe politicians want more immigration to bring in obedient voters, as they call them, who will vote for them in future elections. And a similar number of people believe that there's a replacement of white Irish people underway with non-white migrants. For researchers like myself, what that word replacement means or harks towards larger themes is what's known as the Great Replacement conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy theory that makes that claim that majority white countries are undergoing a deliberate planned change by either national governments or international organizations like the UN to replace white majority countries. This is a conspiracy theory that was one of the main motivating ideologies for the attacker in Christchurch, the mosque shootings there in March 2019, and a number of other terrorist attacks too. So it's I suppose, a conspiracy theory that's been popularized over the last few years by white nationalists and other varieties of extremists like this. And I suppose what's concerning, or kind of what it highlights to me, is how these conspiracy theories have become more popular and have spread, and predominantly through, I think, online and social media platforms, where I think a lot of the responsibility lies for this, because people are, free to engage in and search out information on different questions or concerns they have. But when you factor in the way that social media, digital media platforms are organized and run, they are essentially often prioritizing sensationalist, inflammatory content. And I suppose, the most prominent example of that time and time again are conspiracy theories like those ones I've just described.
Yeah, and of course, I can understand why you and others might label them as conspiracy theories, but for me, some of these issues have gone beyond that. In other words, there are people that genuinely believe that this is the case, and there seems to be an absence of information or education to counter that. For example, the X platform, one of the biggest platforms, biggest platforms in the world, its owner Elon Musk would be a conspiracy theorist by your definition, or not yours. I'm not saying it's you, Kieran, don't get me wrong, because he's of the view there are parties in America that are bringing in migrants that aren't that are allowing them to vote, that shouldn't be allowed to vote, with a view to getting into power. So it kind of is beyond a conspiracy theory. It seems to be an actually established way of thinking, Kieran.
Yeah, and when research really shows this quite clearly, that when prominent public figures, people who have a lot of influence or a lot of reach within society, so politicians is often the case, or other figures like this, when they, I suppose, endorse or espouse or support these kinds of claims and conspiracy theories, then they have I suppose, what you might call something like a multiplier effect, where the spread and reach of these claims can go beyond what they may have nominally done, in periods past. And that, combined with how social media platforms are designed to prioritize and recommend sensationalist, inflammatory, and often false or misleading content information, that really then leaves, I suppose, little surprise that we see such take up in kind of beliefs or support for ideologies like that. I suppose what's notable is that a lot of these kinds of conspiracy theories and beliefs in these types of claims have been increasing internationally for a number of years, and now in the last couple of years we're seeing adoption of similar beliefs in Ireland too.
All right, Kieran, thank you so much for your time. That's Kieran O'Connor, Senior Analyst at Institute for Strategic Dialogue. I mean, again, and I said this earlier, and I've said it to Kieran there in terms of the language of it. I mean, there are lots of people in this country who feel that the country is designed in such a way that a lot of younger people are leaving for opportunities elsewhere, and other people are being taken in to replace them in their positions or what have you. You can call that a conspiracy theory if you like, but is there an awful lot out there? Is there an awful out there as a counterpoint, if you know what I mean? But anyway, I appreciate Kieran's time, and I trust the great listeners of Highland Radio and the Northwest and beyond to be able to very clearly make up their own minds. As a previous Donegal Jigsaw Youth Advisor, it's a great organisation and helps so many young people around Donegal. I can say myself that just being on the advisory panel for 3 years helped me with my own mental health. Absolutely fantastic organisation. Hi, I'm not a biker, but in my opinion, bikers are lovely people. They never cause any bother, and it's all about showing off their bikes and comparing one to the other. Leave them alone. We like looking at them. And it is interesting because there's certainly never any reason given that the bikers are in any way disruptive or ignorant or purposely obstructive. That's not even in the reasons as to why they're banned from the Diamond in Donegal town. When will legislators ever realise that it doesn't matter what the speed limits on various roads are if there is no enforcement then it's a wasted exercise. In this country, we try to fix problems by more laws without effective enforcement. It doesn't matter what the speed limit is. That being said, the majority of people observe speed limits, you see. I take your point, and I made this point to Kieran in the earlier, not Kieran, but Brian in the earlier conversation. The majority of people they do what they're told, really effectively. Hedges need to be cut on the roads. It's not safe for walkers as it's too narrow. Cars are getting scraped due to these hedges. Indeed, overgrown. The roads are, a lot of roads I think are, and it depends on the size of the roads, but some of the roads are reduced by about 40% in width at the moment at this time of year. And I think we all know the roads that we're talking about. Asking anyone in a modern car to drive at 60 kilometres per hour can only be to make more money for speed vans. Our speed limit was always 60 miles per hour, and that was on our bad, windy roads in our clapped out cars. Indeed. But the roads that you're talking of, the roads we're talking of here, you'd very rarely see a speed van or a Garda checkpoint or a Garda enforcement for that matter, because they're our little back roads. Okay, listen, thanks so much to all of you for listening to the show. We're back tomorrow morning at 9. It's a little bit of a different Friday show because we're going to be down in Dunlow and we're broadcasting live from Super Value there. We're going to be chatting to loads of great guests, listening to some great music, having the crack tomorrow between 9 and 12. So I want you to call down and say hello, please, will you? Come in and say hello to us. We love to see you and we'd love a big crowd there. But for now, we